Town of East Fishkill Planning Board meeting together, and we'll start with a roll call.
Michael O'Brien.
Lori G.
John Cutler.
Bob Wilbart.
Great, and if everyone would join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Some more than others, however.
Okay, we have two upcoming meeting dates, one on May 21st and one on June 4th. And if it's all right, Pam, I'm going to hold the approval of the minutes. I haven't had a chance to go through the March minutes yet. So the first item on our agenda tonight is the adjourned public hearing for the Paline site plan on Ryan Drive. And do I have a motion to reopen the public hearing?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Well,
Yeah, please.
what we'll have you do is spin this around. Yeah. Or you can just set it down on the other side of the tripod, that's fine.
Couple of years, very important call. It's distinctive. Grace's favorite rod. That was at the 64.
That was your attorney. Your stay has been denied.
I know, we went on that a few times ourselves.
Hello, everyone. I'm Matt Gironda from Bibbo Associates, for the record. We've been here before, obviously. We've been working pretty closely with the town consultants on the outstanding comments regarding stormwater mainly.
Okay.
I think we've come to an agreement. We've run some models, they've run some models on the town drainage directly downstream of our lot, and I think we've satisfied their request. And at this point, most comments are very minor. There will be no design changes at this point, just minor plan revisions. And being that the case, we respectfully request that we close the public hearing.
Okay, why don't we just have you first give an overview of your site, and then we'll open for questions and public comment, and then we'll
Sure.
talk about that.
Well, as you've seen before, we're proposing a 10,000 square foot commercial building here. We previously had a building in this corner of the property that we've since removed, mainly for stormwater purposes. We're proposing a large subsurface infiltration system right here to handle stormwater runoff for the site. All proposed impervious surfaces will be captured and treated in this area, and larger storms will discharge into the existing pond. That has been the crux of the situation, if you will, that the downstream pond, Melly Pond, which is a town drainage structure, we've been, as I said, working closely with the consultants to provide calculations that we will not increase the water surface elevation in there or not increase the runoff volume that reaches that pond. And we have provided calculations and design that prove that out. In fact, our system that we're proposing is above and beyond what's required under the state stormwater code. We've complied with the request of the town consultants, and I believe we're there.
Okay. And Joe, are you comfortable with the calculations and what's proposed right now?
We've been going over the numbers with Matt's office. As he said, he did a model, we did a model, we did some comparisons, and then there was some further revision of the stormwater plan after that point. We think that what they're showing now is going to improve the situation from the models that we originally did, but we needed the additional detail of their site to prove that, because the model we had done before doesn't quite reflect what they have on their plans now. So we just needed them to go through that additional step. There's some soil testing that needs to be done, and there's some other calculations that we're looking for.
Okay.
But we don't think there's going to be any major change on subsurface facility.
Okay.
I'm sorry, it's an improvement from what was first proposed or from the current site?
More from what's first proposed, but it's all working to the same direction, you know, to not have any increase to the pond's elevation under these different storm events.
I just want to add that the one thing that I wanted to see that Joe and Rick from my office and B Building working on is to demonstrate there's not going to be a rise in the elevation of Mealy Pond. So, right now, even though the increase is very minor, we want a zero increase.
Okay.
The studies that we had done had been kind of like draft studies for our own purposes, because we were just trying to deal with existing runoff, not new runoff. So I think it's just important that we dot the i's, cross the t's, and make sure that at the end, Joe is satisfied, and then I can sign off that there's no increase to the elevation on Mealy Pond. And I don't believe, from what I understand, that we're 100% there yet. We may be close, but we're not 100%.
Okay.
So the board knows, I went over this with Joe earlier this week. We have models actually run by the town consultants that show that there's actually a decrease in the water surface elevation at Mealy Pond.
But there's
Yeah.
a bug in the program that the 100-year storm that we did not try to fix, because for our purposes, we weren't concerned with that at that extent. I would suggest that they should run through the program and see if they can find that bug, because obviously the more rain you get, the elevation does not go down. So we have some kind of bug that we just have not been able to decipher yet.
Okay.
I think what I need to clarify is that this subsurface infiltration system that we're proposing is essentially taking this lot where stormwater runoff would previously run to Mealy Pond and taking it, capturing it, and putting it underground. And there actually is a significant decrease in runoff volume reaching that pond from our site, based on the models run by the town consultants. I have the numbers that can prove it out if you need me to go over it.
We're not going to go into analysis like that here, but what I want to make sure is if we think that there's something else that needs to be done or tweaked or reviewed, we'll certainly make sure that that's completed. Can you just give us a quick overview? I think the last time we looked at this, you had already removed the second building, but we weren't sure, the map that you were putting up at the time didn't actually explain what was going to go on in that area of the site. So can you just explain the use of the site in that back area now that the building is not there?
It's
And
simply
whether
gonna
it's
be-
paved, whether it's gravel, you know, just describe what that's going to be.
The previous building that was proposed here is going to be replaced with gravel yard. This entire portion of the property is topped with gravel. And it's actually sitting on very well-drained native bank run, some of the best bank run I've ever seen, as a matter of fact. We've removed that building. We've actually decreased the parking area or the gravel area from the previous proposal, and provided an additional storage area to allow for to alleviate any potential problems for storage in Mealy Pond. We've taken this area and graded out
Okay.
a
And
small,
the use of the area where you removed the building, is that going to be the outdoor storage? Is that going to be the heavy equipment? Just
it's going to be outdoor storage. There's vehicle and equipment storage is right here on a paved surface. The rest is simply outdoor storage on top of gravel.
okay, and still intended to be things like stone or
Exactly.
whatever materials you would have, but no crushing on site, no screening or anything like that?
Exactly.
Okay. And then the front of the lot where you have the existing building, that's increased in size a little bit. Any additional garage doors or any additional access points, or everything else still basically the same? You just made the building a little bit bigger?
Everything else is still basically the same. Building increased by a couple thousand square feet, and we removed the 4,000 square foot garage from here.
Okay, and Michelle, were we comfortable with the parking as far as the use goes and the on-site
Yes.
parking is provided?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments from board members before?
Are you going to be washing down equipment on this site?
Excuse me, sir?
Washing equipment, your heavy equipment?
think
Will that be
that's a question
power
for
washed
Paul.
down to keep it?
We've gone over this, for the past several months, yes, and that's why we have that paved equipment storage area. We have an oil water separator installed, and that was all for that. All if we were gonna wash, just pressure wash
I may have missed the last time you said that, so I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying, we've
But
been over
that-
that, and that's
yeah.
part of the, that's why we put that paved area in with oil water.
Okay, that was my question. Where's the runoff going to go, and what's going to happen to the gas and oil and everything that comes off the machine?
We do have, as Paul said, an oil water separator and also a pre-treatment chamber with hydrodynamic separator to separate any oil that may have got past that oil water separator.
Okay. Joe, I guess I'm not used to seeing underground drainage that's not below paving. Is that typical, or is there a certain way that's done?
I wouldn't say it's typical, but yeah, you can have that, and they are saying that the structure is going to be H25 load rated when it's got at least, I think it's 18 inches to 24 inches of
Okay.
gravel
Okay.
over top of it.
So that's not unusual,
It's not unusual.
and it should work, and no concern as far as that goes.
Right, there's notes on the plans that say, the manufacturer's giving it that H25 load rating.
Okay, and then I think the last thing we had talked about that I recall is we didn't have a good understanding of where exactly the fencing would be on site, and I think some of the fencing is on top of a retaining wall, and some of it's going to be separate from the building. Just walk us through that quickly. I think it may have changed, like you said, in the back area, it may have changed a little bit, and up by the building.
Nothing's changed, right? We have the vinyl fence here along the back portion here with some plantings. You have fencing on top of
And
this wall? We have fence on top of the wall and some additional plantings here.
Okay, so just describe, it's a 4-foot fence, a 6-foot fence, a 4-foot wall. Just walk us through what that is, if you don't mind.
Was it a 6-foot vinyl fence?
I don't think they're showing some fence,
Six-foot fence, and then you have the,
but they're not
where
really
it is
showing
on the
any
wall, it's a
sediment.
4-foot decorative concrete block,
Okay,
concrete cap, and then you have another 4-foot vinyl. Looks like the same as the 6-foot that goes on top of it.
okay. And then the equipment that you're parking, is there fencing around that within the lot?
Yeah, you see the
Yeah.
big area.
And that's chain link or the same,
No,
That's that vinyl.
wall with the
that's
vinyl.
that same?
And you
Okay,
have trees for more screening behind it, and equipment, actually.
okay. So the equipment itself will be behind a fence on just that one side, or is it going to be fenced on all 4
It's
sides?
all on the front, too. You see up on the top there where the paved entrances are. In between all that, you have the wall with,
Okay.
4-foot and then a 4-foot fence.
Okay,
And we did add to the decorative, it is concrete, it's like a rock face decorative, and it was gray. But there
Okay.
was a request that we can maybe stain it like a more earth tone color. So actually, if I flip that over, you'll see it was more of an earth tone. It's not exact color, it's pretty close. It's some earth tone color now, so it won't be gray concrete. It'll be more like an earth tone color.
okay. Is there a way to maybe prop that up on top of the board itself so it's a little bit higher for folks? Great, thank you.
Yeah, so
Okay,
it's not the exact same color as the computer can make, but it's like an earth tone color. So it looks like a gray concrete.
okay,
It's the-
okay. Okay. Any, Michelle or Joe or Brendan, any comments before we open up for public comment? Mike, you said you had a question?
Yeah, actually, last time you were here, you guys had already started to go to the Board of Health. How'd that go, or the Department of Health?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Department of Health, last time you were here, you had already started with the Department of Health.
Yeah, I'm just waiting on to close the public hearing on all that. It's already been through Marie. She's pretty much approved the septic we had, and I've gone through all my comments, my changes that she needed. I actually got a well permit. I can drill the well at any time. I'm just waiting. So she's all set. I'm just waiting, to get this settled with the town once I get preliminary approval.
Can everyone hear the comments that are being made right now? Come on, if you don't mind, just come on up to the mic so that everybody can hear.
I've been dealing with Marie, and pretty much I'm set with her. I've gone through all my comments with her, and she's pretty much approved our septic, and I have a permit to drill the well already, which we'll do, we're waiting. But once I get preliminary approval here, then I just have to show her that I have preliminary approval, and then I'm pretty much set with the Board of Health.
Okay.
The other item, thank you, was putting our professionals on the spot. It was raised in the last meeting to say, is this going to impact the pond or not? And it sounds like we heard no, but we also heard, well, we're not quite there, but we're close. So where do we stand with it? If we had to put.
Well, that's the
yes
issue
or-
that's got to be finalized.
Right, I
Okay,
I
so it
think
is
we
not-
heard
Line
not
item's
quite
not
there.
there yet.
That is still not finalized.
But the
Right,
intent
we
is that
have,
when
we
we're
have
done.
comments, I mean, they've responded by email and over the phone, but we still need to see the actual proof of those things that we've talked about. And I know we did our own models, and he's done models, and we just need to make sure everything ties together.
Okay. Okay, I think that's it.
Okay. Then what we'd like to do now is open up for public comment. So if you'd like to make comment on the Paline site plan on Ryan Drive application, we'll have you come on up. We have a clipboard on the table here. You can sign in, and then we'll call you up to the mic in the order that you sign up. So is there anyone who'd like to speak for or against the Paline site plan? Okay. Last call? All right, then come on back up. Michelle or Joe, anything that stops us from closing the public hearing at this point? Do we need to finish the stormwater calculations or before we can do preliminary review, or?
What Scott and I have talked about, and I think Tom's aware as well, if we close the public hearing, we'd like them to agree to provide us that last iteration of the stormwater, hopefully the last iteration where we can say it's been accepted, and then a certain amount of time beyond that, they'd be willing to extend the.
So we wouldn't put you on for decision
period.
until that's all resolved?
Fair enough.
Just conscious of the 62-day clock. We don't want to get caught up in the 62-day clock. So as long as they're willing to extend that till we're satisfied with the stormwater is acceptable, I think we're okay.
So that's your option. We can adjourn until we have all of the final calculations and,
I'd rather close it tonight.
okay, and you're
And
comfortable that if we need
comfortable,
to go
absolutely.
beyond the 62 days, that's all right?
So you agree to extend, your client agrees to extend the 60-day timeline provided by the law for the board to make a decision until after the.
Yes.
Okay. Hopefully it won't be necessary,
No,
but we
I-
just want to make sure because we don't want to,
I think we should have this resolved rather quickly. So.
okay.
So the clock starts when you have it resolved.
Okay. Any final comments or questions?
Lori, I had a question in that area where the building was before. If that's going to be outdoor storage, they're only showing a curb there. They don't actually show the wall and the fence. Would we want them to have some
We do
over
show
on
a
that
wall
side?
here.
But on the, there's two large sides opposite that are, I know they're facing woods and there's no real immediate receptors, but would we want them to have anything more than just a curb on those sides?
Joe, the reason why I don't want to put one there either is because I don't want to keep that open.
Mhm.
Try to get in there to, that outlet
Yeah,
or do some
okay.
maintenance or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't want to be able to get back there with, swimming in the back or whatever. I'm not going to get in there, so I'm trying to.
Okay. It was a question we had. I mean,
Were you thinking
Probably-
more of because there's going to be heavy equipment parked there, whether it's going to be?
no, I mean, that's going to be
Yeah.
away from
Heavy
there,
equipment
but
will be
more just if there's piles of material or if there is equipment moving during the day, there might be, additional noise if the wall isn't there or something, but,
Okay.
You're talking about the top of the slope of
yeah, to the right.
but you're saying you're not, it's just going to be flush or there's going to be a curb of some sort?
There's a curb right
There
here.
is a curb, okay.
Yeah.
And then an actual little piece of guardrail on one section.
Okay.
We have a guardrail right here.
Okay.
Apologize about that. Don't have a steady hand.
That's all right. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, then do I have a motion to close the Paline site plan public hearing?
So moved?
Second, all in favor? Aye. And we won't schedule you for decision until we know we've resolved the other issues, but we'd put you on the next agenda after those are resolved.
Fair enough.
Okay?
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. The next item on our agenda tonight is the adjourned public hearing for John Jay Gas Station on Route 52. Do I have a motion to reopen the public hearing?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Does that screen look purple?
Yes, it does.
I thought so.
It's not you.
Okay.
It's purple.
No, I just couldn't tell if it was a shadow.
Rose-colored letter.
It's the connection. Sounds like me.
Yes,
There you go.
Okay.
Just wiggle it. Keep it in place. I don't think so. I could help you out.
Yeah.
God bless.
Bless you.
It's taking a while to load there, so I'll get going.
Okay.
Representative spoke to the EPA after doing bond.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.
What's going on? Brian from Gillespie and Associates. Informational update for the board. We were here last month in front of the board. Again, big topic of conversation, traffic. And since the last time we met, our office, along with Brendan, the town traffic consultant, actually had a meeting out with New York State DOT almost after the last meeting. A very efficient meeting spearheaded by Brendan. Can't hear you. We had a meeting with DOT right after our last meeting. It was a very productive meeting. The topic that came up was obviously traffic, circulation with our site, circulation with the adjoining commercial sites, pedestrian traffic from John Jay. And basically, we came up with a realignment plan.
Yeah, just,
Good luck.
He's coming.
Who's after?
Before you go any further, are you allergic to bees, per chance?
I don't know, depends how really
no,
the
seriously, if
the
you
public
are,
is.
let us know,
I was
because
gonna say. Otherwise, finish your pitch real quick.
Pitch real quick. Long story short, a combined effort between our office and Brendan's office to come up with a realignment plan that works for the site and addresses the issue of traffic. We know there's a problem out there. So basically what we've done is, if everybody knows the site, we've taken Lake Drive and we've realigned Lake Drive. Basically what we're showing is Lake Drive now coming in between Archway Plaza and our plaza. So if you can orientate yourself with the site, basically we're taking our site and we're shifting it over 50 feet. So basically creating a new town right-of-way. Right here. Here's the existing car wash. Here's the new right-of-way. New intersection here.
Brian, go, if you, there's a mic right behind you, if you just pull it around as you're standing next to them. It's really hard to hear you.
Yeah, there you go.
Awesome.
That mic actually is
Oh, it's not? Okay, thank you.
That's just for the TV.
Okay.
Just for,
All right.
All right, I'll talk loud.
Talk loud, please.
You can carry that mic from the podium over to you.
oh, okay, there you go.
That way you could look like a bad lounge act.
Okay, basically, you have your existing car wash here. Here's Archway Plaza. Here's the existing Houlihan Lawrence building. And what we've done is, we've taken Lake Drive, which is currently here. We're going to show that being realigned next to Archway. Basically, if you're looking at the site right now, the car wash is right where Lake Drive would now be positioned. Basically taking our entire site, shifting it over 50 feet. Now what that does is, it sets up a template for future improvements along corridor 52. Much like how we're establishing the extension of water to our property boundary to facilitate future expansion in the back, remediate homes that have been affected by contaminants. This sets a template to allow for future modification of this corridor and mitigative improvements. What this does is it moves us past this entryway into the school. Part of this too is involvement with the school district. Brandon's set up a meeting with the school district to talk about the concept
of this realignment. At such time, if they want to participate, they can. But for right now, we kind of developed this to initiate discussion on improvements to the area. So that's basically the big improvement that we spoke about with the DOT. DOT was receptive. Again, this is all in the field discussions. We've submitted this sketch to the town, to DOT. They're not going to formally comment at this time until we get a formal submission to them. But just sketch plan wise, this is what we've talked about. As far as overall design concept, everything remains the same. 4 pumps, we're doing the same square footage building. If you look, just to give you traffic flow, everybody's concerned about traffic, deliveries, commercial. What we have here is we have a full access right here. This entire front is curved. So basically, from a delivery standpoint, tractor trailer coming in, probably to be coming in from 52, coming down Lake Drive, entering the site this way. Here is our drive-through around the building, much like our original concept. Delivery spot will be located in the escape lane of the drive-through. Refueling for the buried tanks over in this area here. So basically, truck traffic's coming in, dropping off, unloading, exiting out 52. Tries to force a lot of the traffic into the site and out of the site. We're trying to keep traffic off of the rear portion of Lake Drive. And again, there is also a full access here that we're showing if people want to come out, make the left-hand turn. We are showing some kind of a curving here and sidewalk for pedestrian access to the site. Everything's in concept. Again, it's good to feel. But those are some of the major improvements that we've done conceptually to begin the process of talking about mitigation for that intersection. Brandon, you may be able to speak to more of the DOT involvement since the last time we were in front of the board.
Maybe just to expand on a couple of things that Brian talked about. When we looked at traffic and we analyzed the level of service, the critical time period was the AM and the AM during when John Jay High School was getting in. So what this concept does is it does remove Lake Drive away from that entrance, that right turn entrance into John Jay High School. It's a pretty significant movement in the morning. There's close to 130 cars that take that right-hand turn into John Jay. Those 130 cars would conflict or propose or have a potential conflict with people looking to take a left-hand turn out of Lake Drive. So this removes that conflict by repositioning Lake Drive, further to the east. And as Brian mentioned, this is definitely a forward-thinking concept, so that if Lake Drive stays in its current position now, and this development or some form of this development goes in, there's not much room to make improvements. Connecting up the high school in the current location of Lake Drive is difficult because of lots of underground utilities. It also would leave the property of John Jay High School. So a lot more issues, and it doesn't provide a direct connection to the parking at John Jay. I think, in a forward-thinking concept, this would, somewhere in the future, this Lake Drive and 52 could be a signalized intersection. It could also be a signalized intersection that replaces or relocates the signal that's currently at John Jay High School. That signal that's there works and functions well for the school. It doesn't do much for the rest of the corridor, even for pedestrians from John Jay High School crossing 52. There currently is a mid-block crossing. It's not under the control of the signal. So if somewhere in the future a signal gets installed at this location, there'd be the ability to put in a pedestrian phase and a protected pedestrian crossing here and make it a lot safer for the students that do cross the road. Also, Brian mentioned, if you can remember the last concept where everything circled around, and most of the traffic was then funneled out back to, from Lake Drive and back to Lake Drive. So here, we're going to get a better distribution of traffic where, if they enter on Lake Drive, traffic that goes to the drive-through would be directed to the westerly exit and can take a right or a left out of there. As Brian said, the delivery vehicles, while they might enter on Lake Drive, in all likelihood, they're going to exit onto 52. So you'll see them once and not twice. So these are all some benefits to the function of Lake Drive. So when we looked at that from doing another analysis and a level of service analysis, we still have a level of service that's not great in that half-hour time frame of about 6:45 to 7:15 when the majority of the high school is getting in. But once we move beyond that critical time period, we're seeing acceptable levels of service for the critical movements of the left turn out of Lake Drive, and we saw improvements to that in the PM peak hour also. So it functions much better the way this is configured, and as Brian said, it lends itself to even improving traffic in that corridor in the future much better than the existing situation that's out there.
Brendan, and I'm not sure if the current plan shows the same thing, but the one I'm looking at, it looks like we have a full access right next to Lake Drive into this site on 52.
That was an
And it
earlier,
seems really, oh,
that was an
that's early.
earlier
Okay,
iteration
so-
that we did. So, right. The
I thought
iteration
that
we
wasn't
brought-
what you said, but I just
Right.
want, the plan I'm looking at shows.
Right.
Yeah, that was our initial discussion after we met with DOT, just to throw
Okay.
concept on paper. And then we
Okay.
kind of refined it with Brendan's office to eliminate that intersection closest to Lake.
Okay, so
now we
there's
have
no access there.
No access.
No
that's
access.
all
There's only
curb.
one access out
Okay.
onto 52, and
And
that's
it's a
as-
full access in
a
and
full
out.
access, and it's pushed as far to the west as feasible.
Okay.
Brendan, I think the last time when you were grading the intersections, that it came as an F during the critical hours.
Right.
I
Now,
would assume there's no improvement from F to anything else. It still fails, but not by much more.
it still fails in that short period, that half hour in the AM, but that is the only time period that it's actually failing. And once we get to the next hour, it drops to a level of service E, and then the PM critical hour is a D. So it's a vast improvement over what before we had a really bad F in that AM peak, and then still an F even in the subsequent AM hour, and then even an F in the PM hour. And what this has done is improved that dramatically, where now we have there is a failing level of service for that short period of time where the school is getting in, and then it improves to an E and better than that, and then in the PM, it's improved to a
Now,
level of service D.
Right now, as is, with no remediation of the site, what are the numbers?
Its current configuration without the gas station in full operation is a level of service C.
Okay, so
for
there
those
will be
peak hours.
decrease in levels of service even with the mediation?
Even with remediation, yes. Yep.
Thank you.
But that would, it still would go to an F with the as-of-right use, correct?
It would go to similar levels of service, yes. As a right use, it would be in that E and D range without any improvement. Like if you didn't realign Lake Drive and you were to restore the function of the gas station as a gas station, a small convenience store, and a car wash, it would deteriorate to those levels of service that we're seeing with the improvement. So
And-
you would see E's and D's then too.
And the applicant can do that right now without,
That's my understanding, and we can confirm that with Tom.
There's DC issues,
right,
but some town.
okay.
Yes, theoretically, we could remediate, reopen in current condition, but we'd like to improve the site. And
Absolutely.
work with the neighbors behind us and come up with an overall plan that, like Brendan said, is forward-thinking and lends itself to further mitigation down the line as the corridor becomes more active, which it will be at some time, when IBM comes back online or another company comes in across the street.
So, and again, it is the first step towards ultimately moving that light from the John Jay to opposite Lake Drive, right?
Right.
But, in so doing that, again, there would have to be a massive change on the other side of the street at John Jay to make that happen, correct?
Right, if there was to be some involvement with the school district in realigning to the new location, there would be some kind of internal configuration. As we know, Wappingers probably doesn't have the money in the budget. But I think Brendan may have.
Like, just to give you a somewhat of a little bit more insight on that. I mean, we did meet with the school. You know, one of the problems they face there right now is that most people come in the main entrance. And that main entrance is, you know, staff, buses, drop-offs, student parking. They're all coming in that main entrance. Once the buses get into the site, the school tries to stop any more circulation around the front of the school. So they redirect people into the parking area, and things get sort of log jammed in there. People can't even turn off of 52 at certain points in time because there's no place to go. So they're having some circulation issues. And one of the ideas that we talked with the school district about was actually maintaining that access drive where it is, but using that for staff and for buses. And then if an access point can be created opposite of Lake Drive, that can be for the drop-offs and for the student parking, for student drop-offs and parking. So there is a way to sort of separate it. Even another idea would be that certainly when the buses leave the site, instead of having to put a whole new driveway into the high school that would service buses and everything, leave that configuration the way it is and leave that signal there, but you could change the operation of the signal so that the buses could use it when they needed it. So you could let that signal run for an hour in the morning, an hour in the afternoon, and then it could go on to a flashing mode and not interfere with the rest of the operation and the traffic on 52, but it would allow the buses to get out of there with a safe left turn. And then, you know, in the future, like I said, if that connection is able to be made, it also makes it a much more economical and feasible solution for the school, because now we're only talking about making an access connection to the parking lot, not a full-blown access and circulation.
And one that would not have to accommodate buses, too.
And one would not have to accommodate buses.
Yeah, that would be a great idea.
So, and it also would enable them to sort of separate, you know, what they're having the trouble with now is everyone's coming in one spot, where they could separate the staff, the buses, and the students that come in and park, and the students that come to drop off.
Right, and one comment, very positive towards this, is this would also improve Archway. Because right now, you know, you have another commercial right there, boom, boom, boom.
Right,
So
it lends itself to help adjoining commercial properties. Also, the Houlihan Lawrence building, which is right next door, would have an access toward the rear that would also use Lake Drive, which is, you know, would be a future controlled intersection down the road. But it does help the overall plan of the area.
Any other changes to the interior of the site with
I think the biggest thing that we had as far as a change internally was the looping of the deliveries. Originally, we had it on the opposite side. Now we've kind of changed it to force commercial traffic on the lake and then out on 52, right or left. I think we're still going to remain with the same delivery schedules, off-peak as best we can, just because the school is such a major factor with peak traffic. We've provided notation on the site plan to kind of enforce that, you know, with the town. The location of the refuse enclosure, if you want to get technical, that has changed. It's more toward the rear of the parcel. That's probably the only thing that's really changed. Landscaping wise, we're going to provide green areas as we modify the sketch and resubmit. Parking wise, I think we may have to take into account maybe some parking at the pumps, just because with all the reconfiguration internally of the site and the additional curbing, parking does become tighter, just because we shifted the site over. When we shifted the site over, there was no real net gain in area. It's almost a balance based upon what we can see. We don't have an official survey, but we're working off the site plan next door. So there really is no net gain. We lose a little bit of space, if you can see in the back from the Houlihan Lawrence building in the rear. We're providing that access. So where I think we originally had some parking on the previous site plan, we had some employee parking back there. Now that's more of an access for the adjoining site.
Just
you have parking right in the front of the building, which is nice, because then pedestrians aren't necessarily having to cross traffic unless they're sitting at the pump or something.
Just one other thing I don't think Brian mentioned is this proposal does also include a left turn lane off of 52 into Lake Drive.
Okay.
No, first of all, I commend the applicant for, I think you guys have certainly tried to do everything and not spare any expense on this, so.
Yeah, I think we were trying to follow the template that we used developing the concept with the extension of the water. We're providing to the best of our ability to develop a plan that helps the residents in the rear while also helping our site, which is we're going to bring the water across the street to the edge of our property line to hopefully force the state and on behalf of the town to try to initiate some remediation back there. And I think this does the same thing on the traffic end, which gets you a template, which gets the area aligned in a way that can help further mitigation down the road.
Yeah.
Lori, one other thing that, there was a comment at the last public hearing, someone indicated that when we looked at the accident data, they believe that the accident data, there may have been a lot more accidents in the previous years when there was more traffic in this
Right.
corridor. So we did look back at historical traffic volumes that the DOT publishes, and it looked like 2004 to 2006 was a time frame where there was more traffic in this corridor. And we did look at the traffic, we did pull the accident data for that 3-year period of 2004 through 2006. And, you know, it does vary, but it doesn't show that there was actually less accidents in the span from 2004 to 6 than there is in the 2010 to 2013 timeframe that we put in the study.
Okay.
You know,
What about the
it's-
nature of the accidents? Anything more serious? Was
No.
the average speed higher? Anything?
I mean, it's kind of a distribution. I mean, it's not,
Yeah.
yeah, there's, you know, actually, what it showed is, you know, most of the accidents are actually at the intersections. And actually, when we look through the whole corridor, the majority of the accidents actually are occurring at the Palin Road intersection. But there's some at John Jay. There's, you know, they're just sprinkled throughout the corridor.
And still primarily like the bumping when traffic's queued, or?
Well,
have
that's,
there been,
a
like,
lot of that happens at the
collisions?
intersections. A lot of the other accidents in the corridor are turning accidents.
Okay.
So people are either taking a left turn, or they're taking a left or right turn out of the business and, or into the school. There's several at the school entrance too, also, so.
Okay.
So the turn lane would have a very.
The turn lane would help that, right, because it's gonna
Very
offer,
positive.
it's gonna offer a refuge for those left turners.
So we need DOT to commit money. We need the Wapacha school system to commit money.
Well,
I think that's,
And when you have to move Lake Road, and we want up the same level of service we have if you just rebuilt the site the way it is.
I think what we're doing is we're providing a template for further mitigation to happen above and beyond what we're proposing here. We're not asking for money from DOT. The applicant is committed to realigning Lake Drive as you see it now. If DOT,
Right, but that does include a turn lane for 52.
yeah,
it's a simple restriping out there. That's relatively easy. I believe the pavement's already there
yeah, the
width-wise.
pavement width is
It does.
there.
It's there.
It's a matter of modifying the pavement markings.
So Brendan, can I just clarify, because to Bob's point, it sounded like you were saying, you know, roughly we would have the same level of service with this plan as we would have if it was the gas station, convenience store, car wash. And that's, I'm assuming, without the without putting the signal here.
Without putting a signal here, right.
Do you have a sense of what happens if you do move the signal the way you've been talking about? And
Well, it would certainly improve the level of service existing right now if you left it this way, just realigning Lake Drive. We actually did run an analysis for a signal just to make sure that it would have a level of service C or better, even if if everything was connected. So we connected the high school, we connected Archway, we connected the Houlihan Lawrence building, the gas station, put that all into the signal analysis, and it does work.
Okay.
So, you know.
so I think that's really,
what is-
the
what-
ultimate goal is to say.
What's the definition of does work?
A level of service C or better.
C or
And
better.
does that include the second light still at the
That,
current entrance?
no, well, we relocated it. I mean, in that case, it didn't include that light.
Okay, so, but I thought one of the proposals was the main light, but then you have a light that's active like an hour a day.
What we did was we took traffic counts at the school entrance, and we consolidated all of those. So we included all of the traffic. So if two entrances were maintained, it would even function better, because we would remove some of the traffic from Lake Drive.
Okay.
And I don't know if I answered your question, Bob.
I think you did. You said it would go back to level C service, which is not what we
If-
have right now.
Right,
No, not
but
that.
even, yeah, right.
It
So-
would go to a level C, which
Right.
right now we'd have an E, if he just rebuilt the way it was.
Right, E's and D's.
That was the question.
Yep.
You answered it. Thank you.
I just, real quick, have a comment. Even if we're not putting the signal in now, can we lay out theoretically where the signal would go so that it won't conflict with any sidewalk or any new infrastructure? And then, to the extent possible, if we can put sleeves under the new Lake Drive, so we don't have to open up Lake Drive again when the time comes. So could you look at that and just see
Sure.
to what extent we could put in
Yeah,
subsurface, minor subsurface improvements and avoid future conflicts?
right.
And then, I apologize if you said this already, you mentioned the water line, it made me think, where is the water line located in this proposal? Is it still,
It's going to be along the new corridor that we're realigning.
okay,
So it actually, this realignment of the intersection actually lends itself better to coming across 52. There's not as much heavy utilities underground conduit in the location across from the street.
okay.
So it would basically be going in, following that path up to the property line.
On what would become your side of Lake Drive? Run up, okay. Okay. You've done a lot of work on this, and we appreciate that you've been willing to work through this stuff with us. I know there's a lot of different things we've talked about and proposals out there. Any other comments, Michelle or Joe, before we open up for public comment, or any other questions from the board? Okay, what I'll have you do is, folks, if there's anyone here from the public who'd like to speak for or against the John Jay gas station plan, I'm gonna have you come on up, and we have a clipboard to sign in.
Hi, I'm Harold Stewart. I live at
Yep.
19 Locust
And
Lane.
what I'll have you do, sir, just so that we can keep your name in order for the minutes, if you can just, and sir, if you don't.
sorry.
Harold, I think you're number 2 now.
Thank you. We just have to make sure we catch your name for our minutes, so I appreciate that.
Instructions.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. And then we'll call everybody up who signs in. We'll call you up in order that you sign in. Go ahead, go ahead.
Okay, I live at 19 Locust Lane, which is just at the traffic light, okay? That's in question of being moved.
Okay.
Now, what I have issues about is that the demographics were done years ago with this traffic light. And I'm not opposed to adding a second traffic light, because it would probably, work to the advantage, because I think if you take the one away, the people have a tendency of accelerating down the road, and if that light is further down, it just causes more issues. That's what I have with that. We also have our property for sale, with the stipulations that we have the opportunity of using that traffic light, in all, assumptions. So I would be opposed to moving that, since it does work, because we can't forget that we have 2 IBM sites, one being to the west, that used to house, maybe 6,000 people over there, and that many cars, and none of those accidents were reported in this investigation. As for the gas station is supposed to stay where it is. And I think that the town would be inheriting the spill area if they were to put a road in between the plaza and the gas station. we had children that went to the high school, and we asked DOT to put a crosswalk with
Walkway.
lights, and they said it costs too much. A traffic light is a lot of money. I don't know how much it is to move it, but I hear that, you know, just putting in a traffic light, let alone a crossing light, is a lot of money. I have other issues about water, but my wife is gonna handle that when she gets her opportunity.
Okay.
But I'm just in question of, you know, the initial demographics. This gas station has been here since the 70s, and in no way is it gonna get larger. You're gonna be pulling in tractor trailers in there? I don't know what you plan on selling to be bringing in tractor trailers. So, that's all I'd like to say.
I think that's primarily for the gasoline delivery, the size of the
The
truck.
gasoline gets in there anyhow by making the left in there, as Puccini's trucks used to do,
Okay.
you know? So,
I have a question. Locust Lane, I know there's those older homes that you can see from 52.
Right.
How far back, how many homes are on Locust Lane?
there is a two-family house, the main house, and then there's a cottage in the back.
Okay.
It used to be a garage that was converted back in the 70s, I believe.
So it's really just like a single dwelling row?
Yes, it's a single dwelling. I believe it's, what, around 7 acres? About 7 acres.
Thank you.
Okay.
So, yeah. And you know exactly where that is, what I'm
I
speaking.
do, but I didn't know how far back it went.
It actually goes back to Lake City where, you know, you go down the hill.
Does it connect? I mean, does anybody?
No, it doesn't connect. You gotta go Lake Drive and then, you know, go in the back there.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom, can I just ask you to take a moment, because that's not something we've talked about yet. If we did kind of shift around where Lake Drive is located versus where the gas station is now, what is the liability to the town with this
Well,
bill,
that's
if
one of the
any?
issues that's being looked at, but DEC is willing to work. See, DEC has given the property owners come in a limit of his liability to the confines of the current site. And according to the cleanup plan, the area where the road is would be able to be continued, any reclamation, et cetera, subterranean. So we are going to meet with DEC, but they don't view it as being a major obstacle, that the liability would still stay in place with where the folks who caused it would still be the responsible parties. But obviously, that's an issue that would have to be addressed, because this, if this were to happen, it would take the consent of the town board and the highway superintendent, so there's a lot of levels of review yet that would have to be done.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we talked about that, because
Oh,
I know it was a
absolutely.
great point.
We're waiting for a meeting with the DEC council in Albany, which should be coming up in the next few weeks.
Okay, so this is something that we wouldn't go forward with until we knew that we had the DEC's...
In writing from DEC.
In writing from DEC, okay. All right, thank you, Tom. Okay, the next name on our list?
Next one is
Don?
Don Smith.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I appreciate all your work you've done on this. It looks like you've really worked very hard on this. I do have some questions, though,
Sure.
mostly about drainage. Being that this is going to be a well-macadamed area, where will the drainage go? Where will the water be going? Will there be catch basins that we put in? How will you alleviate the water coming in off the site?
Okay.
Should I respond?
Well,
do you wanna
let me have you ask your questions, and then we'll address them after.
A fence to Archway Plaza. I can envision going down the road where Archway then would want to come onto Lake Drive, the new Lake Drive, and use the traffic light now. How are we going to alleviate that from now, all of a sudden, we're dealing with this mess, the school across the street, and now the traffic from Archway Plaza? Will there be a buffer or a fence or some type of guardrail put up to keep the Archway Plaza on their side and to keep the Lake Drive clear from people coming on to Lake Drive, making a left or right into Archway Plaza.
I'll again possibly defer to Tom here, but it's my understanding that Archway would not be able to
At the
access.
current time, they don't have any improved access onto Lake Drive, so obviously, if in the future they ever sought that or whatever, it would require a public hearing modification of the site plan.
So we would have to go through this again then to fight
Well,
for
it's
Archway Plaza.
theoretically possible because any property owner can make an application to access a public highway.
Signage, what kind of signage would we put up there?
Typical building mounted signage for the front, monument style.
We have a problem because not everybody can hear you. We can only have one person at the mic, so I'm sorry, Brian, just.
That's okay.
So I have drainage, I think we answered the Archway question and the
Right.
signage.
How are you handling the traffic from the kids walking across the street, or are you handling that? Because there's a lot of traffic now where kids go across to get coffee from the existing Dunkin' Donuts. Now there's going to be a convenience store, which I believe is going to draw them across the street even more. Without the traffic light coming in right now, is there going to be a pathway for them to walk? Is there going to be?
The Dunkin' Donuts and Archway won't be there anymore.
Right, but it's going to be moved down, so it's going to be directly across from where they go. But they're
Yes.
still going to go over and get their coffee.
Yes.
Is there anything that's going to be put for them, or it's just to be the way it is now?
I think we haven't gotten that far in the planning. We're certainly going to have to address that, and typically we like to have hatched crosswalks like there is one now,
Okay.
and sidewalks, but I don't think we've gotten that far quite yet. And this really is kind of just a mock-up right now. We haven't gone very far with it yet. We wanted input through this process first.
Car wash had a recycling pumping system, I believe, in the bottom there. Is that still something that has to come out recycled, or how is that being handled for the?
We'll have the applicant give an update on the site reclamation.
How will they know when they come into New Lake Drive and they're coming through? Will there be a connection between the old Lake Drive coming up and the new Lake Drive? In other words, can I, at the Y intersection, can I now make a right and go out the old way? Or can I make a left and go out the new way?
It's probably hard to see because this is an overlay onto the existing Lake Drive, but what you're seeing is actually the interior of that gas station site. So while you could turn into the gas station site and go drive through the site on the far side of the drive-through lane, it's part of the drive-through of the site, so it wouldn't be a convenient access point. Physically possible, but it's hard to tell because you're seeing what looks like a roadway underneath what's really the drive-through lane.
Let me just check my notes here, and I
Sure,
think I'm
sure.
pretty well done.
Okay.
That's it, thank you.
Thank you. Brian, come on back up if you don't mind. Let's just walk us through, if you don't mind, the drainage.
Drainage, since we're basically having a swap of impervious material, there will probably be some sort of mitigation subsurface-wise out there. I believe from some of the soil logs that were done out there, it is a pretty porous material out there. So being that it is a gas station, there would be some kind of a hydrodynamic separator, there would be some kind of system to catch pollutants and whatnot.
So more to come on that as we get into.
More to come on that as we go on. There'll be some kind of spill prevention around the pumps, there's fire suppression, that kind of thing. So all that go into a fully developed site plan, but those things will be addressed in a future submission.
Okay.
If we're talking about the building, signage, that kind of thing, right now, I don't believe we're showing any signage on the building right now, the way it was approved. There probably will be some kind of monument-style sign at the location of the new intersection right here. That would obviously detail the gas station, price of gas, that kind of thing that's typically seen on newer sites. What was the other issue was Lake Drive access. We're showing our improvement coming up to this Y, so if you want to continue here, continue here, you can. Our improvement comes right up to the net of that Y. Just to give you an example of what we're proposing right now. Drainage, what else?
I miss anything?
Yeah, the status of your reclamation of the site and what used to be functioning with the car wash.
It's my understanding, we're not directly involved with the remediation process, but it is my understanding that those components will be removed in their entirety. They'll be disposed of in a DEC facility, all the components that went along with the car wash and whatnot. The filtering of the soil will follow the prescribed remediation approval plan. It's my understanding that will be ongoing until it reaches a level of DEC sign-off.
Okay. Okay. Is there a, and I guess I'm not familiar with the spill sites, is there something on the DEC website that talks about that, Tom?
Well, there's a consent order, and then that implements that the site has to be cleaned to a certain level. But then they have detailed specifications. I believe it would be on your website, how you clean it up. But there's an approved reclamation plan.
Okay. So if you want to see exactly what's being required by the DEC, that should be available
You know,
to you.
what we could probably do for the public, since there seems to be a lot of input on what's being done remediation-wise, we could try to get a copy of that and maybe give it to Pam. They could have it in the
That
folder.
would be great. Thank you. And we did just quickly touch on already, I think, Archway and the pedestrian traffic. We're just not there yet to have talked about that, but it's certainly something we're going to have to address,
Right. And-
regardless of what happens here.
Just working off of that, Brennan and I had a little bit of conversation. We were thinking about some kind of a sidewalk or maybe a long Lake Drive on our side that would allow the students to at least get across the street. If there's going to be a light, there would be some kind of a crossing here. We're thinking about some kind of a sidewalk up Lake Drive so they move to our site. Again, in concept, thinking about the kids, pedestrian, traffic safety, that kind of thing, but we'll develop those as we go.
Okay.
But we are thinking about them.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. Our next name? Stephen?
Good evening. I'm Steve Franzen. I live at 5 Rothel Drive, which is the next street up where they bagged up the light,
Okay.
the current lights they bagged up.
Okay.
I really don't believe Washington Central School System is going to pay for anything. I mean, I'm sure you all know they're about $4.5 million short this year alone. And they're asking the school to do a lot, and I'm not voting for any more money as that goes. 2, I see a big circle here, and during morning rush hour of your IBMers and your school people, they're gonna be wanting to make a left in, and you put them back out into the street to make a left. Can you see how that's gonna become a traffic jam in that circle? You got people in that left-hand turning lane wanting to make a left. You have 10 cars in queue, and then people leave and want to make a left out. That's not gonna work.
Okay.
And the way the traffic is going westbound, you want people coming out here making a left, and can't. Just the traffic alone that drive-through is gonna invite. Because I know how it is at the Dunkin' Donuts down here at 9, in the Shell station, by Allsport. And that gets backed out into 9 like crazy, real easy, real quick in the morning. So I really don't see the love in this at all. As far as the water line, if IBM doesn't want the city water, I don't want it.
No, it's not Poughkeepsie.
Poughkeepsie
This is
water.
Fishkill one.
This is
It's a
Fishkill
different
water?
separate
This is
line,
Fishkill
yeah.
That 30-inch line they've been complaining about?
No, that's the Dutchess County line. This is a line that runs from Fishkill up to the Shenandoah area.
Oh, it's two
It's
different
separate.
pipelines?
Yeah,
this is different. I was gonna say, if IBM don't want it.
No.
I don't want it. And as far as reclamation of the land, holy cow, they've been dragging their feet on that for how long? I mean, I have to get my well tested again. It's been 2 years since I had it tested, and that just balloons out. I've seen what it did in Westchester, in several spots in Westchester.
You understand that this applicant is the one who started the reclamation?
Yeah.
As soon as he bought.
Yeah, and I don't know, I see a hole in the ground out there
Right.
with a pipe, big pipe and a little pipe. That's it. Is there something pumping out of the ground? Are they percolating it? Are they sucking it up? I've heard about tests, but I haven't heard about anything being removed yet. And the more that sits there, it's not just staying there. It rains, water pushes things away. and it gets closer to my house and everybody else's. What other problems I see in this picture? Oh, just moving that road over. That puts you closer to Archway exit, puts you closer to the traffic coming out of school. And I can't see turning off a traffic light for the rest of the day for the people coming in and out of that school. Just because of the volume. And that school just doesn't stop. That intersection just doesn't stop after the buses are through and the kids are dropped off. Even after school, you have all your after-school activities. You're gonna turn the light off for that? This whole traffic scenario is craziness. And just what that drive-through is gonna invite is gonna make it, the heck with your Ds and Es, you're down to Zs now. And not for nothing, one example was Dunkin' Donuts here in town on 82. I mean, they wanted a drive-through many years ago when they first put that up, and that's a better location for it than here. And you didn't let them have it.
There were some other.
There were other issues there?
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't closely advised, but I think that's a better location for a drive-through than putting it right at the edge of a neighborhood in an area, because that's the future if they ever open up IBM West. And you have more traffic coming through that. That whole big circle jerk there is just gonna become a mess. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Margaret Ferguson Stewart, 19 Locust Lane, Hopewell Junction. First of all, that was my husband, and we did, to get off what my main topic is going to be to address you, is about the sidewalk that the state did put in front of John Jay High School. We petitioned the DEC to ask them to put a crosswalk in, the same as Royce Ketchum has. And we were told it was too expensive for them to put it in. Who's going to pay for a new traffic light when they can't even afford to put a crosswalk in that's an existing light right now? That's one of my problems. The next thing is I'm a very idealistic, different person than most people in this room because I live between Archway Plaza, the gas station, and Stone Ridge. And I'm in the middle for everything on this planning board, basically, tonight. Lived there for almost 35 years. I'm not opposed to Stone Ridge as long as they maintain the safety of their homeowners and their children.
I want to make sure we're
No,
gonna,
I'm going
we'll
on
have
to the
Stone
gas
Ridge come
station.
in
Oh,
next.
no, gas station. But I will say that I want them to also address water problems, water supply and drainage. I'm not here to go back in time when my water was polluted, and by no means do I think it was a personal issue with the owner prior of the gas station or the current owner. The government did allow for that additive to be added to our gasoline, not knowing the consequences that were going to happen down into the future. I'm here to state that the town, and your planning board in the town, I don't think you're really addressing the issues of our neighborhood. It's our water and our drainage that's the problems here. You're so worried about traffic and easements and the lights for this new planned buildings. What about the problems that we have right now? I'm the household that brought the court action to get our water back in 2008. The spill happened in 1994 and 2000. The town has done nothing to help the taxpayers in this area. I met with the supervisor, Mr. Hickman, on May 13th, 2008. At that time, I was given a 4-step plan that was needed to complete this. First, it was an engineering reports had to be done. The piping had to be done, the land. Only to find out, watching TV at a planning board meeting, that there's water in front of my street that's been there, that I don't have. Storage tanks and a land to put the tanks had to be purchased. Has it been done? Who's going to pay for all this? I was understanding it was a super fund. Where was the super fund in 2008 when I went to court? There was no money. The water district has to be set up with the residents. Every resident needs to vote on that. That hasn't been done. I have a letter dated on June 4th, 2008 from Supervisor Hickman in response to a letter from the former gas station owner. And he stated at that time that they would pay for an 8-inch water main under Route 52 and bring water to my home. Also, at that time, Shenandoah was hooked up along Route 52 and would be turned over to the town before the end of the year in 2008. The work would also provide for 10 homes in Lake City. I also have a letter dated December of 2001 from the DEC that stated well samples and water filtration systems were going to be taking place on a quarterly basis and monitored. Also, the DEC, with the owner at that time at the service station, was to be installing a process pump and treatment ground system in the car wash. I guess the car wash is going to turn into Dunkin' Donuts now. I have court decisions from my court case in 2008 that states, according to the navigation law, the owner, past and present, must recover the cost of restoring the real property to the state prior to the stigma from the spill. The court also determined that the properties have permanent damage. No one knows where the MTBAs will end up next. Maybe Stonebridge, or maybe your homes. The new service station, I guarantee you, will have bad water. How could they not? Also, please note that within the past few years, I've had many companies come and check my MTB levels in my home. I never know what company is going to be hired by who to come and do it, and nothing is on a periodic basis at all. I think it's time for the town and the planning boards not to worry about so much about your lights and your traffic flows and your driveways. Help us now with the water before new development comes in here. Also, Archway Plaza was much busier than it is now, and more than this gas station will be. There was 8,000 workers in the old IBM 300 Plaza. They're not there now, and they certainly used Archway Plaza. The dry cleaner was packed, the video store was packed, the delis in there were packed. And now you're telling me because you're putting a little gas station up here who's going to have a drive-through Dunkin' Donuts, it's going to be more than surpasses the 8,000 workers that used to work there? I can't see it. And I don't want 52 to become 82, where there was a lot of accidents out there, and I don't think there was too much planning involved when that was developed. That's all I have to say. And also, I'd like to know, and ask Mr. Director, Mr. Wood about this, where's the money coming from your so-called super fund of your water? And where is it?
Well, first of all, it's not a Superfund site.
You was quoted as a super fund in a planning board meeting that you said.
It's New York State has a fund for contaminated water supplies. They also have a consent decree with Bettini, who is the former owner of this station and others. They have money in escrow that is to be used to go towards the.
And when was that established?
That's a DEC matter. That's,
Well,
when they settled.
Well, when we were in court in 2008, there was no money to be had. There was nothing mentioned about that. Shenandoah,
The
yes.
sales of these properties have generated the funds, is what we've been told by DEC. In other words, the applicant before the town now to redevelop this site paid back a certain amount of money for this site. That
We do
money-
know that the sale of the business, yes, money was put into escrow. I think everybody's quite aware
And
of
that
that.
created a fund.
And where in this little plan here does it show the water going down the other
The
side
water
of
main
52?
is- Well, you see, ma'am, this, as the chair lady pointed out, is a generic representation to talk about the traffic issue. Had you been in prior meetings, we've discussed the fact that there is the Shenandoah water line, which was paid for by the Environmental Protection Agency when the Shenandoah area of the town was cleaned up. And what happens in those cases, the town has to form a water district. The EPA got IBM to put in a water system, and ultimately it was turned over to the town. So there is a 14 or 16-inch water line that runs on the other side of Route 52, 12-inch, that goes from Fishkill up to Shenandoah. The town board advanced $250,000 to upsize that line so there'll be sufficient capacity for Lake City and others that are going to need to tap into.
Really?
the
Well, then how come I have a court order here from
Well, I don't know
Dutchess
about your
County
court order,
that
but
said,
there was a vote of the town board in 2006. They advanced the money. They've laid out the money.
2006?
Correct.
Well, Mr. Attorney, I beg to differ, because you're the superintendent
I'm
of this
sorry.
town came to
Ma'am.
the court and testified.
The
He
town
testified
supervisor,
it.
Mr. Hickman, didn't take office until 2006. I didn't become.
In
town
2008 was my case, and Mr. Hickman testified, and there was no water on Route 52 at that time.
There wasn't.
There wasn't.
But we had to advance.
Then
it.
why hasn't the owner of the gas station, or the previous owner, sent the water across when he had a
Because
court
he
order?
didn't do it, so the new owner has an agreement with DEC that they're going to extend the water main from the other side of Route 52 along Lake Drive to the rear of their property. That will then give access to the water for the
And what about the
beginning.
east side? What about when you're going east from where Lake City is?
Well,
Lake
that
City,
water main
from
will be
east.
sized sufficiently that it will be able to service the properties on the other side.
So
of
it's
52.
taken 5 years since my court case when the state of New York said that
People
they
on
had to
Lion
do it.
Drive were waiting 7 years or so with the EPA to get.
And
their
the water line is in front of their house.
They don't have water over there.
We have water in front of our house, supposedly it's been paid for by the town for $250,000.
I sympathize with the situation that you have.
one home private property, and
I also took a law case against the town, against, not a town, the previous owner of the gas station, and was granted by my decision that I was to get water when it was out in front of my
and that's
home.
an arrangement with Botini, so you have a court order that you can enforce to get the water.
So you're telling me that out in front of my house, there's water? That's
I
what you're
wanna-
telling me?
I wanna
Can I
just-
just, is there water in front of my house or not?
It's across the street.
And
There
it's
is
palatable
a-
water? It's good water?
There is a water line that runs along 52
Is it
on the
good
far
water?
side of 52
Is it
across
good
from
water? Then why are the hydrants turned off?
It's not for fire flow. It doesn't have capacity for fire flow, but it has potable water.
So we put fire hydrants there, but we put a water line in that wasn't big enough to serve the fire hydrant?
No, it has to do with
I'm sorry,
storage.
Tom, I appreciate this, but I want to,
No, I'm not
excuse me,
gonna
I want to
debate it.
redirect the conversation to the current application. The current applicant has purchased this property, as you're hearing, has put, from that purchase, there's money in escrow to help resolve these issues. I do sympathize, but we're getting off topic for the current discussion this
Well,
evening.
where's the water supply going to come for the gas station or for the Stone Ridge's commercial buildings? That's on the agenda tonight. Where's that water supply? Who's going to be testing their water?
My understanding is we'll bring the water across the street from 52 and up along this applicant's property. My expectation would be this applicant would likely be tapping into that water line when they do that. We can confirm that with Brian when
Okay.
we have him come back up.
But please address
Absolutely.
also the draining issues too, because as it is right now, the curtain drains that are in front of the gas station and in
Yeah.
front of Archway Plaza go in front of my property and go into the brook, which is right in front of, which goes through my property, who has a purge permit with IBM.
I want you to know that we won't be able to address that tonight because they're not far
The
enough
drainage is
along in the
not far
planning
enough. I do
process. But
understand.
yes, they
I
absolutely
understand.
will need
I
to
do
address that.
understand
So
the drainage.
what you'll hear at the end of the meeting tonight, we'll adjourn this public hearing to another date, and I encourage you to just keep coming. We'll be developing this as we go. Brian, do you want to just come back up for a second and let us, can you just confirm, was I correct that you would intend to use the water supply as you bring the piping up past your property?
Whatever size pipe is deemed acceptable to bring across to serve Lake City, we'll bring across, we'll provide that. We've always been committed to that, we stand behind that. We will be using that water line too to service the station. And then drainage, we'll provide a drainage report that we typically do with all our site plans that will address contamination, spill prevention, like I said before, and that'll be in a future submission once we get some kind of a blessing on where we are layout-wise. That's.
And we're not there yet.
That's what we're not there yet, but that is
Okay.
forthcoming.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Do we have any other names on our list?
Alan Kolodner, 11 Circle Drive, Hopewell Junction. First, I want to thank the developer. I think they put a lot of thought into this. However, these are in no specific order. This project is too big. You have two sets of pumps in there that can fuel 4 cars. They're expanding that. They're doubling the size of this. Take a look at what's going on down on Route 9 in front of All Sport. That's the size of the canopy and the fueling area that they're planning on the site. The traffic concerns that the people in the neighborhood are raising just seem to be discounted. These are real issues. And realigning Lake Drive is only going to cause a bigger blind spot at the rear of the property. When you come up the hill out of Lake Drive, you bear to the left to come out towards 52. That's a blind spot. And they're going to make that angle even tougher now by realigning that road. What assurances are we going to get from the town that in 2, 5, or 10 years, all the agreements that were entered into, if you approve this project, are going to be continued? Because we're seeing now, with the condition of that property, that prior agreements have not been lived up to.
Agreements with respect to
Cleanliness, deterioration,
Condition,
pollution, traffic, car wash. That place is disgusting. One of the prior speakers did speak about Archway now cutting out onto the newly arranged Lake Drive, so all you're doing is exacerbate the existing problem. You're shoving more traffic onto Lake Drive. That traffic light will never happen in our lifetime. Wappinger Central School District will never pay to realign their parking lot. The current condition of that property, as I said, it's disgusting. There are about 7 homes in Lake City that are currently up for sale. As people come into the neighborhood, and I've met some of the people that are looking at homes, they want to know what's going on up at the corner. There's piles of contaminated soil that is not covered. There's a huge hole in the front. There's asphalt. There's concrete piled up. It's a pile of junk. And the applicant should clean that up today, not pending that site.
Do you mean what was piled up for the remediation that's
Yeah.
going on?
Get it out of there. Because when it rains, the water runs down Lake Drive into the Gildersleeve and into all of our wells. It's not covered. It's foul. And for those people trying to sell homes, when an applicant's coming up from Westchester or from Orange County, or somebody that's lived in the neighborhood that's trying to buy, they see that mess, and it's a huge turnoff. And also, does the applicant have a permit to store all of that contaminated soil and all of the other garbage that's on that site? Because it's a safety concern as well. I see little kids, 8, 9, 10 years old, playing on those piles on the weekends, so the town should take a look at that. I think we've spoken enough about the water from the previous speaker. I commend her for that. This doesn't alleviate any of our traffic concerns. This exacerbates them. It now causes a loop, so you're going to have people coming east on 52, making a left into the site, coming in and getting coffee, buying whatever they're buying, and exiting back out to continue to make a left. Then you're also going to have students coming west on 52, trying to come into the site, also making a left into the school where they're not supposed to make a left, which they currently do. So what they do presently is they come into the site as it shut down, they come back out into Lake Drive, they make a left onto 52 and a right into the corner. So this doesn't do anything to alleviate that. Our friends on Birch Drive and Rothal will have now 72 homes. The traffic from the backside of Lake City, where I live, coming up, and to avoid this mess, will now be coming out to the bagged up traffic light at the end of Rothal, where the HSBC Bank is. So there's going to be secondary concerns as to traffic now flowing through the neighborhood that I don't think are being addressed here. The traffic study, the gentleman had mentioned that, how the traffic flows into the school. I beg to differ. You're completely incorrect there. I see where the traffic goes. I see the flows. They're trying to make lefts. They're trying to make rights. And that gets backed up and it becomes a dead stop. How is having a tractor trailer on this site an improvement? You're now going to have a tractor trailer coming east on 52, making a left into the site, while you're having people trying to get out of there. Somebody had mentioned that we're only going to do deliveries off-peak as best as we can. As best as we can doesn't mean anything to me. That means that we're going to get tractor trailer deliveries whenever the driver gets there. So you can have a delivery on a Saturday afternoon, you can have one on a Friday night, multiple issues. And I think the planning board needs to really take a look at this project. Is too big for the area. There are too many secondary concerns. You're taking and I wrote this down, make sure I say it right. that the concerns raised by these residents, these 80-something houses in the back, seem to be taking a back seat to the rights of one single property owner. And I hope the town planning board takes that into consideration.
Thank you. Brian, come on back up for a minute if you would. Brendan, I know we've heard a couple times tonight a reference to the Route 9 site, which if anyone's ever tried to use that drive-through, can you just give us a feel for the comparison of that? I know you're familiar with that site as compared to this site.
Yeah, I mean, I have some familiarity with that site. I mean, it is a congested site. They've arranged it such that, you know, you can't get back onto Route 9, so, you know, everything does happen internally on that Route 9 drive-through, and there is, you know, there is poor circulation. It's very constricted in terms of size. There isn't an escape lane, so, I mean, it's different. It doesn't have, wouldn't have the same flow as this one has, but it's similar in the fact that the gentleman's correct. It does have the same number of pumps, and it is a drive-through Dunkin' Donuts. But it's you know, the movements are different, and the planned movements are different. But
okay, do you think that because that site is on Route 9, is the traffic flow and the counts of cars that may go in there, is it going to be similar to the traffic counts that you saw on Route 52 when you did the updated counts? Or can you give us a feel for, you know, are we 50% of those traffic counts, 150%? And you don't have to tell, I mean,
I would have to check the counts on Route.
I
would have to check the counts on Route 9. I mean, certainly the traffic on Route 9 is significantly higher than it is on.
But you're also only accessing
52.
from one side.
You can also access, right? But even that is probably you know, larger.
Okay. If you can give us a feel for that, maybe next time we come back, just so that there's a kind of a feel for the way. Because I know that I would not want that in this site.
Right.
And I don't think that's necessarily what's here. I think you've got escape lanes. I think you've got a very different site. But if we can just get a feel for the difference in the traffic flow, I think that would help.
Okay.
Brian,
Do that.
I know you're under some probably very strict, and you're probably not the right person for the applicant to talk about this. You're under some very strict requirements by the DEC for this remediation. Is there anything you can do on the site to cover the exposed soil? I'm concerned when I hear there's soil running off.
Right. We'll consult with the applicant. We'll make sure that these issues are addressed, obviously, from a visual standpoint. We don't want kids out there also playing on the material. So I think something can be done to help facilitate their concerns in that respect.
Okay.
As far as the remediation goes, where they are in the process, we don't have that information. I think what will help is if we get a copy of that report with the town, and then we can all be looking at the same thing.
Okay, and then maybe just for next time, if you can kind of give us an update for where you are in the process and what's coming, just to give us a feel for it, and for how long the soil's going to need to be. I know you may not necessarily know exactly, but if it's going to be 5 years or 5 months, just give us kind of the ballpark
Like
stuff.
anything, it's probably a function of what's underneath the ground there, but I can probably give you an estimated time frame as best we can.
Okay, that would be great. Brendan, a couple folks have mentioned that and I see what the comment is, that the left-hand turners from 52 are going to run through the drive-through and try to make another left-hand turn back out, as you're going to have people from Lake Drive trying to make right-hand turns. Short of, because initially I don't think we're expecting that there would be a light here, short of that, is there a way to mitigate that, or is there a way to try to control that a little bit
there's a couple
better?
things as we update this traffic study, and we'll look at it. I mean, we have, in the initial development, we did do a Q study, so we'll update that for this current proposal. But we'll do a Q study to make sure that there's enough storage in that left-hand turn lane such that that's not going to block access out of the West Drive. If they're actually using the site and they're going back out to 52 and taking a right, they're probably going to use the west exit. They're not going to use Lake Drive. There will be certainly the neighborhood of Lake Drive that will come out and want to take a right. They also do have the option, though, of Rothel Drive, the people that live back there. If they're going to travel westbound on 52, I mean, certainly that's a viable alternate route for them. But even just in terms of the projected traffic volumes and the counts that we did, there's not a real significant amount of traffic generated from Lake Drive going, on 52. I think it was in the AM peak, it was about 25 cars that came out of Lake Drive.
But that's going to be significantly increased with anybody probably making the left-hand turn in from 52, because they're going to go to Lake Drive to make the left-hand turn out, I would think.
Or they'll be able to make the left from both locations.
Right.
Right.
So-
I'm not sure I follow your question.
I guess there's no easy way to do that, but I was trying to think of how you could make the left-hand turn in happen, and then the majority of the traffic making the left-hand turn out of Lake,
And I
not
think,
conflict with each other with.
you mean not conflict with the other entrance?
Maybe
or
it's
exit?
on 50, the access on 52 doesn't make a left turn or something like that. The site entrance on 52 doesn't make a left turn out on 52 or something like that? So it's controlled through Lake?
Yeah, I think what's going to control that is actually when we do a queue analysis. I mean, if the queue from the left turn turning into Lake or turning into the development at Lake doesn't back up to the point where it's going to block the access of that driveway, having another place to take a left would help alleviate that a little, help alleviate the left turn traffic. So that you would split it some. But I think you would look at it in a conservative way, though. You would still assume that most of the people that are going to take a left are going to take it from Lake Drive.
Okay.
But certainly some people that went through the drive-through, if they're going to head back to the high school, they're going to want to take a left out of that driveway.
Okay, and then also I think one or two folks have mentioned and I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name of the road over by the First Niagara HSBC branch.
Rothfall, right.
Thank you,
Rothfell.
sorry. Have we looked at what the traffic is there today and what
Yes.
we expect will happen here? And just can you quickly walk us through and if you don't know, again, maybe when we come
Yeah.
back next time, let's make sure we're able to say, here's what the level of service is today and here's what it looks like.
Right.
'Cause I do agree that some folks are
We
gonna
did
go-
include it in the original traffic study. We did count traffic out there, and we did do a level of service analysis. I mean, the reason that the DOT did bag the signal is just there wasn't enough traffic demand to warrant that signal anymore. We're showing acceptable levels of service, C or better, coming out of Rothfell Drive.
Do you show an increase there with this development?
We didn't show an increase. I think diverted traffic, while it's a possibility, I don't think it's highly likely. We also have to realize that we're talking about the peak hours too. So, in this hour in the morning and, an hour in the PM is when we're going to have, congested amounts of traffic. But the rest of the day and, the rest of the time period, these intersections and the driveways are going to function fine. They're going to function at good levels of service.
Okay.
So,
Folks, I'm sorry, we're getting a lot of feedback that the mics are picking up and I can't hear what the speaker's saying. I'm sorry, Brendan, go ahead.
Okay, so I think that, there is that potential. We haven't looked at that yet, but we can take a
Okay.
look and see.
Okay, thank you. Do we have other names? Great. Lisa? Did you say Lisa?
Hi, I'm Lisa Franzen. I live on Rothwell Drive. And point blank and simple, I don't want more traffic. What the board has to remember is that this is a quiet family neighborhood. I'm raising 5 children. Most of these people are raising children. There are children just old enough to start riding their bikes through the neighborhood. We don't want the additional traffic, especially that a 24-hour Twin Donuts, and by the way, I love Twin Donuts, so it's nothing personal. But I don't want this. I don't want my neighborhood to all of a sudden become harder and more difficult for all the innocent children to have what they're used to. And with all due respect, all of it is focusing on just those specific hours that when school is letting out or when businesses are opening up. We live there 24/7. This is going to impact us all the hours in between that also. It might not be the heavy volume, but it's still going to affect the innocent children and the families that live in that neighborhood. And that traffic light being out, I don't care what anybody else's stuff say, I can't get out of my street. I literally sit there for 10 minutes sometimes to make a left-hand turn to bring my children to John Jay. And it's not easier in the afternoon. And you have seniors getting out at all different times, 11:30 in the morning. It's not just the going in at the 7 o'clock, 7 a.m. rush. There's the 11:30 kids leaving. There's the 2 o'clock dismissal. There's the 3:30 sports things leaving there. There's the 4 o'clock in the afternoon late buses pulling out. We're in and out of there, all the parents going in and out, picking their kids up at all different hours of the day. It is not just specific hours.
Okay.
So whatever they're looking at to make it look like it's going to work, I'm telling you from a mommy point of view, living in that neighborhood for 17 years, raising my kids, it ain't gonna work. And my husband pointed out the loop. I mean, really. That loop in itself, you want to move Twin Donuts or Dunkin' Donuts, you want to move them down there, but the whole loopy thing with the drive-through can't happen. It's just disaster waiting to explode. And it's going to be more of a magnet of a hangout for the kids. We're just starting to get that whole strip of stores that is across the street from John Jay cleaned up. And the people that are actually owning those establishments now are actually caring about the kids not being there when they're not, being there when they're not supposed to be. You put in a whole new place for the kids to go and a new convenience store and everything else. It's a recipe for disaster. That's just the mom point of view from living there and raising 5 kids in that neighborhood.
You mentioned in your first comment, I think, that the light that was turned off, did the neighborhood prefer that to remain on, or was that?
Yes.
Okay.
Heck yeah. There's no safety in it. You can't get out of there.
Okay.
You can't get out. You can't make a left-hand turn in. I mean, literally sometimes 10 minutes waiting to get out of your street. And you have all the kids parking, which is a whole nother thing. But like they said, Wappinger School District is not going to put money into making any of these changes. They're taking away all of the sports from Van Wyck Junior High School because there's no money in the budget. So to think that there's going to be money to make these changes down the road, or God forbid, taking away that traffic light at the high school entrance, you might as well just start preparing extra coffins because there's going to be accidents and they're going to be deadly. You have kids that are brand new drivers. They need those traffic lights to control them going in and off that property.
Okay. And I think, just to be clear, Brendan, I know the original proposal, I think, was to keep the traffic light for the school buses and to limit that entrance.
But
Wait, I'm sorry, bear with me 1 second.
Yeah.
To limit that entrance and then direct the rest of the traffic that would be entering the school in the event that we signalized this intersection to bring that traffic to this intersection. So it's signalized and the first traffic light that's there now would only be used for the school bus. The entrance would only be used for
Again,
school
and that is
buses.
only a
Okay.
concept. I mean, that's,
in concept, do you think that the juniors or seniors that are on that property are not going to use that entrance? Unless there's a guard there to stop them or a gate there to stop them, they're going to go in and out of that entrance. Do you think after all these years of that school being in existence, how long is it going to take parents to get on board? That traffic light has to stay on.
My only comment is that the intention is that there would actually, during those times where people are coming into the school and leaving at the typical school start and end hours, that both lights would be functioning. That was my comment, because you seemed to indicate you thought that the light was going away.
Right,
I just wanted to clarify that.
But if the light is only going to be active and then going to be flashing for the rest of the time in between, you still have the 11:30 dismissal. You have the 2 o'clock dismissal for the buses. You have the 4 o'clock dismissal for buses. It can't just be 2 times of the day.
No one's made the plan yet. What I'm saying is the intent is not to make there be an unsignalized intersection for ingress and egress to the school. That's not what we're talking about. So,
That's what it
Okay.
sounds like. That's what it sounds like. You
Then
said it's going to be
I would
on
apologize if that's what it
during the 2 busy
sounded
periods
like.
only.
The intent would be for the majority of the day that it would be a flashing light, but that at the times where that driveway would be in use, that it would be a signalized intersection.
But that's referring to the second light.
Right, not the Lake Street
Still
light.
be
the
a
second.
primary entrance light that would be 24/7.
Right.
I'm telling you, I'm there every single day. It's not going to work.
Well, just a couple of things, Lori, I think
Sure.
that are important. One is, I mean,
Yes, if I
obviously.
said anything wrong, please correct
No,
me.
it's, I mean, you know, this is something certainly that has to be done in concert with the school. And again, it is a concept, and I think, and we had one meeting with some school officials and the facilities manager to get a better understanding of their operation and some of the shortcomings that they currently have, and, you know, where they can see some improvement from their end. So it is only a concept. The other aspect about the traffic throughout the day, I just want to, you know, we do, when we count the traffic, we count it for a 24-hour period of time for several days. So we don't just count in certain hours. We had tubes out there for a number of days where we count the cars for, you know, for 72 straight hours to see where the peaks are. And not just for one day, but over several days, so we make sure that we find the peaks right. And then when we do the analysis, it is a worst-case analysis. So we're looking at the highest traffic volumes and the worst hours. That's what gets evaluated, because that, you know, that's sort of the governing level of service of these intersections. It doesn't mean that we're not looking at the other times, but if we demonstrate what's happening at the worst times, then we know that there's improvement in the other times. Just for clarity.
Thank you.
Yep.
But I'm just going to, in closing, really seriously think about it. This is a quiet neighborhood where children are being raised. We don't need a 24-hour drive-through in a quiet neighborhood.
Thank you. Are there other names on our list? Okay. Was there anyone else who wanted to offer comment this evening, or anyone else who wanted to come back and offer additional comment?
I just have one question.
I do want to apologize.
Come on up. That's all right.
You know, I do want to apologize. I didn't mean to cause friction. Just the water issue is a very deep sentimental value to me. I drink the stuff.
We
and my kids
understand.
drink it.
We understand.
I have one question.
Sure.
The site plan going ahead on what if it goes back to the old gas station and the new development or whatever, is it contingency on us getting water? When is the water? I mean, the water's there supposedly. Why can't the present owner start bringing us water? Has nothing to do with their site plan. Is that a fair question?
I think it's a reasonable question to ask. I think that it's not incumbent upon this applicant to do that unless it's something that they've been directed to do by.
I thought I was told that this gentleman was the one who was putting the water in. Aren't you putting the water in, or your
He's
company?
bringing a water main across Route 52.
Well, when is
the
that
end
gonna
of his
start?
property, and that's an agreement he has with DEC
Right.
to cooperate at that point.
I'm sure he's
If you
gonna-
have issues about when the water's coming, maybe you should address them to
When is the-
DEC, as we've been trying to
When is it
address.
gonna go across the street since he's there,
Well,
his.
when they start
Ma'am, what we're saying is
When they can start construction of the project. So in other words, the water is not gonna start going across the street until the project starts.
That's correct. There would be no, we wouldn't permit construction to happen until we have an approved site plan.
Just to bring the water across.
That's correct. We wouldn't approve construction to
So in
start.
other words, if this doesn't get approved for hypothetically 3 years from down the road, I still have no water for 3 years, and all the other people in Lake City have been drinking MTBs, none of us have water.
I would defer to the town attorney's comment that it's truly, and I do understand the concern. It's just not something that's in the purview of this board. That is something that the DEC is in charge of as far as the remediation goes.
The people that he's working for is willing to give us the water. It's not within the
They're
town.
willing to bring a pipe across the street.
Fine.
period.
Right.
To bring it across the street. But yet,
Then it's
even
a
if he,
multi-million-dollar project to go beyond that, to bring water.
to get it across the street, I'd be happy. Just to get it across the street, I'd be very happy to see progress.
Right.
Can we get it across the street without a site approval on here?
Well, until they
It will be
fix,
part of
it's
this
gonna
site
be- they don't know
approval.
Where the water line's gonna come across, if it were real.
So in other words, the water line coming across the street has to be on their property?
Well,
The,
Let me just
no, no, no.
speak to that. Right now, we've gone out in the field and we're looking at bringing it across the existing Lake Drive. The problem is DOT won't let us come across at an angle.
and we have telephone manholes. There's a lot of obstacles on the other side of the street. So where we would have to come across would be across from the septic field for the medical plaza. We'd have to jack under 52, you'd have to have a receiving pit, and there's a septic system right there, so that precludes us from going there. If we do realign Lake Drive to this location, it's wide open. We can put our receiving pits on both sides of the road, we can jack across 52 underneath, because DOT won't let us do an open cut, and that alleviates that problem. We can get across the road. This
So in other
also
words, everything is going to
takes
be
care of that
west,
problem.
in other words, west of John Jay is where the water line has to go. That's what you're saying?
Now, we would come across perpendicular to the proposed Lake Drive. That's where we bring the water main across.
And it's
from there,
impossible to
branch
bring it to the east at all, in front of Archway Plaza or in front of my property? That's impossible?
No,
Or has
that's not impossible, just has not been analyzed. It's been analyzed as part of this project because the applicant has proposed to pay the expense of
Well, it's
bringing
not
it
that he
across the road.
proposed to, actually, the state is mandatory
However you
making
wanna
him
slice
do
that,
it.
however
The
you wanna
navigation
slice
law
that.
makes him, whoever owns the station, past or present, the navigation law is not your town, not the planning board. Federal government says they polluted it, they paid for the water. So.
Well, I want to be, I'm
Well,
sorry, I
this
want to be clear,
applicant
this
actually
applicant
did
did not
not
pollute
Oh,
this
no,
site.
he did not, and I said
I want
it
to be
wasn't-
very
no.
clear about that.
Oh,
He is
please, I-
remediating this site.
And I'm not blaming the
They are
previous owner.
remediating this
I'm not
site.
blaming the previous owner either. He didn't go down and dig a hole and say, I'm going to pollute the water. It's nobody's fault. It's an accident. It's nobody's fault. It was an accident
Okay.
that happened. Nobody did
Okay.
it intentionally. It's not a personal issue. It's just, please just get us the water. And now we have to wait for a site approval for somebody's property before the town can give us, not the town, but the DEC or anybody just give us water?
I think you're highlighting the need for, we all share for prompt resolution to this.
You know, and as I do, I apologize, I'm just very emotional about it. You know, I don't know how your folks' wells are, but if you cooked in my house, maybe you'd feel emotional too and have children and the procedures that I have to go through to live on a daily basis. You know, and I'm sure some of the other people in Lake City don't even know what they're drinking. And it's not this gentleman's fault or his people who employ him, or the people who actually own the property. It's not their fault.
This
Okay.
application only gets water across the street. Then the infrastructure for distributing the water is a separate problem right now.
And who's supposed to be paying for that? Navigation law says that whoever's the present owner has to pay to restore property before the stigma happened. I don't know, but I do
Okay.
apologize because I am so emotional.
Just know that we are working with the DEC, and it's, unfortunately, we're just very early in that process right now, so that's probably why it feels like we're not giving you a lot more
I believe
information.
in year 2000, so I guess, you know, a couple more years.
Okay, all right. Does anyone else have other comments? Oh, sure, come on up, sir, you said you had a question, I'm sorry.
Did I get you right earlier when you said that Bontini already put money aside for remediation?
Yes, with DEC, he has a consent order with DEC.
When is he gonna start cleaning it up? I said it before, I never got a, when are we gonna start
Well,
cleaning it?
You know, we're as frustrated as you, because we've been waiting to get a meeting with DEC to talk about the water to get going on. We're waiting 7, 8 weeks now, they haven't been able to meet with us. So, you know, we're frustrated that way. DEC is responsible for this, they have the consent order, they're responsible for enforcing it. The town has no right to go in and tell them you have to do this or this with the consent order. The piles of debris on the site and everything, we were surprised as everyone else when he was there digging it up. We had to call the property owner, he gave us the documents from DEC that they gave him permission to do it. The site over here in Hopewell on 82, one day we all drive in here, there's big piles, big construction going on, town's never notified, DEC grants permission. So we're as frustrated as you. We're trying our best to get them to come to the table with us, because in the end, everybody comes here to the town and says, what are you doing? We're trying to get these other agencies. We have the Ryan Drive folks who, for 7, 8, 9 years have been with EPA. We meet with EPA monthly. They're gonna pay, they're gonna do it. We've given them water sources that the town provide. We're very frustrated. We can't get them to clean water. The Shenandoah people, I think it took them 10 years, they heard it. And then in the end, the EPA says, okay, now the town, you have to take it over and operate it. And of course, the people then come to us to complain because we have to pay to buy the water from Fishkill, and not everyone else was getting water for free from their wells. And, you know, so we're just as frustrated as you. We're trying to move DEC. I can't tell you the various times we've prodded them, we've poked them and everything else, but, you know, they surprise us too. Can you sue?
Thank you. Okay. Brian, come on up.
Short term, we'll try to get you an answer on cleaning up the site visually, maybe
Thank
trying
you.
to get that material covered, because I think that's a big issue.
Yes.
Children's safety, the open pit, that kind of thing. Long term, we'll try to get you a schedule on remediation action, on what we're doing out there. And I think we all have a larger government frustration here. I know the applicant's attorney is very well versed with the DEC. I know he's been trying to push a meeting with the DEC. Hopefully we can kind of prod him to do that a little bit more efficiently, but we are trying to push on our end too to get this meeting with DEC to facilitate the broader remediation in Lake City. So we're not just leaving it in the town's hands, we're trying to push it on our end too. And I think a big part of that is us pushing the water to Lake City. I think it helps the conversation with DEC, but we share the same frustration.
Thank you. When should we bring this back?
I
Because
think
I think we're kind of in a holding pattern right now until we have some of these other answers.
I think the big issue probably is with traffic and some of the analysis that we got to do. And we probably need a full submission that we can get the proper review done. We have to provide some more information detail-wise. I guess where my frustration's probably coming in is layout-wise. I mean, I don't know if we're at a level of comfort yet. I'm hearing from the board, based upon the realignment of Lake. I think that's the big key here. I think conversation with DOT went surprisingly well with the realignment concept. Although we haven't heard anything officially with them in concept in the field with the right personalities out there, it sounded like it was feasible. So I guess I would probably defer to Brendan on procedure, since layout is the key issue here. And I think both traffic and moving forward.
Yeah. I think, well, I would say in the next 10 days, we'll update the traffic study. But, in conjunction with that, we need, a more refined site plan from Brian to include with that and submit to the DOT. The DOT has had this project and the original traffic study in front of them for some time now, a couple of months. So, but, we've been giving them more information along the way. So, we need to get them and say, this is sort of this is our package, please review this, and then, we can get an answer out of them. So I think even, if we get it in within the next 2 weeks or by the end of next week, then it's up to DOT, and that's a little bit of a wild card, but I mean, I don't think anything happens in 2 weeks, so maybe a month from that, for that point.
From that point?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
something of that.
Members of the board, the plan we looked at this evening with the realignment versus the plan without the realignment is very similar as far as the site itself goes. Are we comfortable with either version of that plan? And again, kind of pending some of these conversations with the DOT? So Brian, I know I'm comfortable with either version, again, depending on outcomes of discussion with the DOT. I understand the need to try to get the water main aligned in a way we can do this reasonably, but.
Yeah, we're not, and understand too that the original traffic study had Lake Drive in its existing location. That's still going to stay. We're going to give them a supplement to that traffic study, which says,
Okay.
if we realign Lake Road, here's the analysis that goes along with that. So they'll have both scenarios in front of them.
But I think to also emphasize, there's other reasons why we might do that.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
I'm hearing loud and clear, the water issues are pretty.
It does facilitate, the realignment does facilitate the extension of that water main immensely.
Right.
And it seems to be a very big concern right now.
I guess something that bothers me, and this is I guess more a matter of timing. If you look at 376 and Fishkill Plains, now that intersection was supposed to be improved to 4 lanes and finished in 2012, originally 2010 and 2009. Now, so if we go ahead and build this, you move Lake Road, by the time DOT finally gets around to completing their chunk of the pie, we could be 2020. It just, I wonder about what happens in the meantime when you try and do those timing things. And I don't know how to estimate it, and I wouldn't ask anybody else to either.
So,
I just
we're
wanna-
going to analyze it as
No.
it is going to be unsignalized. I mean, the analysis is
Yeah.
not going to be with a signal. We're going to demonstrate that the signal can function.
Right.
In the future, but the analysis is going to be restricted to the proposal that's on the table today.
And it would be as built at the time it would open
Okay.
up. Yeah.
That's what I didn't quite understand what
Yeah.
the timing of everything was.
And we did ask the question about how the light changes that,
Yep.
but the actual site would be based on
Based
what would
on
happen.
as is now.
As it's
Right.
proposed.
As proposed.
Yep.
That's what I was trying to, I didn't understand the timing of those things. Thank you.
Right, right.
Public hearing closed?
No. No, we'll be adjourning the public hearing this evening. There's a ways, I'm sorry. There's a ways to go on this. Sorry, sir. But, okay. So it sounds like you have at least, Brendan, you need 2 weeks for the traffic study. We need to have a refined site plan to be able to share with the DOT, and then we need at least probably a month for the DOT to get back to you. Does that sound about right?
Upon submission to DOT, 4 weeks would be, so we're probably 6 weeks out at least.
So June 18th or July 2nd or 16th? I'm not sure about July 2nd. That's kind of right around the holiday. Usually there's a lot of people on vacation and unavailable, but.
July 16th.
Or June 18th. I mean, June 18th is,
I'd like to shoot for June 18th, just to keep the conversation fresh in our minds.
okay. Brendan, is that, are you
Yeah.
comfortable with that? It's 6 weeks, basically.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, to make the point that it's not that we're giving them, all new information. It's what they have, and we're building on that. So, we can push them as much as we can.
Okay. So, I'm sorry, Brian, give me 1 second. Did you want to come back up with another comment? You're welcome to come back up, sure. We're still in public hearing.
You're missing a point. The project is too big. You're changing the demographic of the area. The people that live there don't want it. So clean up the site, rebuild the gas station to the current dimensions. You don't need to double it. And this all goes away. And the developer gets his gas station, gets his convenience store, can put in his Dunkin' Donuts. The 24-hour thing is an issue. We don't need the drive-through. But the project, for where it is causing too many secondary concerns that are just being kind of, we're gonna leave this up to the DOT to make a determination to whether 86 homes in Lake City get to continue a quality of life. We moved here years and years ago because it was quiet. This is not gonna help. Yes, it'll make that intersection much more attractive, but it doesn't do anything to improve the quality of life for the people who live in East Fishkill.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Let me ask you a
Tom-
question.
oh.
Tom,
Wait, folks, I'm going to ask you to stop.
the recently passed ordinance.
The special permit,
Could the applicant combine the square footage of the car wash and the store into one building?
That's what it's virtually done.
yes.
Right, but that is, my point is, that is the as-of-right use.
Well, the zoning ordinance allows this kind of use in this district. And then with the special permit, et cetera, you can reconfigure it on the site, that square footage. So that's what he's trying to do. It's different.
So-
The addition of the drive-through is different.
So the point that I think you guys need to understand is that by not rebuilding the car wash, he can build a bigger store.
Well, I think he needs a special permit, doesn't he?
He's getting
Right, that's what.
Okay.
a special
The
permit.
drive-through.
Yes,
Drive-through,
this is a
the
special permit.
site plan, it's the
Okay.
traffic, and the
Right.
gas, the amount of gas pumps. There's all these other concerns.
Got it.
Okay.
Got it. I just wondered, because you said this is too big, I just,
This is
getting,
too big.
quantifying
And if they
exactly
scale it
what
back,
constitutes
there's a lot
too
of things
big.
that they can do on
Thank
that
you.
site.
Okay. All right. Okay. Brian, June 18th?
18th.
Comfortable with that? Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn this public
Motion to
hearing to
adjourn
June
to
18th?
June 18th.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Folks, again, we do appreciate you coming out and sharing your comments, so June 18th will be the next time this is on for our discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, Brian.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is a public hearing for Stone Ridge Commons site plan on Route 52 and Round Hill Road. Pam, do we have, he got a signature on it. Pam, do we have? Folks, we're still in public meeting here, so if I could just have quiet. Pam, do we have everything we need to be able to open this public hearing? Okay, so do I have a motion to open the public hearing for Stone Ridge Commons site plan?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you.
You gotta make a concession there, that's what it needs to be. Get rid of it entirely, right? Is that right?
Oh.
Good evening,
Hi.
Dennis Jones with Day Engineering. As mentioned, we're here to discuss the Stone Ridge Commons site plan.
Okay.
The
And-
plan.
Oh, I'm sorry, and just bear with me for one moment. Before you get into the site plan itself, what I wanted to just share with the public is that what you're going to find as we look at this plan tonight, it's not as refined as you may have seen some of our other plans, because this applicant asked us to begin the public hearing process a little bit early to get input from you. So there may be some questions we can't answer, kind of similar to the John Jay, where we're needing to kind of go through a process of figuring out what fits and what works. We're looking at the same thing right now with Stone Ridge. So I'm sorry, I just wanted to make sure we said that up front, because you're not really at the point where we normally would have had like pictures of buildings and things like that. We're not there yet.
Okay.
Thank you.
The site is located along 52 and Palin Road. The site consists of 2 lots that were originally part of the Stone Ridge subdivision, Lot 22 and Lot 23. They were rezoned to B1A in 2006. What we're proposing is basically two sites. The first one on 22 will consist of a building. It will be a total of 12,600 square feet. 6,300 on the first floor, and the same on the lower level. What we're proposing is along 52, this will be a 1-story building. Along back, this will be a 2-story building, so you have access from parking along here and access from the lower level. What we're proposing to do, this is the existing road that goes in here now. As part of the rezoning, there can't be a direct connection between the residential subdivision and the commercial. We're proposing a cul-de-sac here, where this entrance will be existing. We are proposing another entrance on Palin Road. The second site here will be a 1-story office building with 8,000 square feet and a bank with a drive-through. As part of this, we did extensive drainage studies as part of the rezoning. We are going to be proposing 1 pond along the back of the property here, and also another one along the property here. Both these ponds have been designed to hold up to 100-year storm without discharging. There is currently a discharge here now that's going to be removed as part of it. They're going to be infiltration basins. Base of the water will stay there and percolate into the soil.
So would they generally be dry until, unless
Correct.
and until there's a storm?
Correct, and then when there's a storm, there'll be water, and then within a day or two, it'll be gone.
Excuse me, I'm not sure you stressed enough that the road off of 52 will be discontinued. Did everybody get that?
Correct, this,
Yeah, I know. No, it's going to be discontinued.
Well,
this access from here will have a cul-de-sac. This entrance here will be used to serve both the sites, and there will be an additional entrance here.
You won't be able to get through.
This through road now will be cut off at this cul-de-sac here.
But the road stays.
would you provide emergency access?
There will be emergency access here for emergency
But
vehicles.
residents who currently live in that subdivision would not be able to exit onto Route
That is
52
correct.
any longer?
That is correct. There will be a 25-foot buffer
landscaping buffer around the cul-de-sac. There's also a 50-foot buffer along Route 52, and there's an existing non-disturbance along Palin. We are going to be putting this entrance in here. We're going to be swapping whatever disturbance we have here to extend this. Right now, the easement goes right to this property corner here. We're going to be extending it all the way to 52. There were some comments from from the last time we were here. The site plan had changed a little bit. Originally, the bank was located over here. We had relocated it over to the opposite side to provide just better circulation through here. Originally, the drive-through was going through the center of the site here. There wasn't really any room for queuing. What we're proposing now is keep it off to the side with adequate queuing along here.
How is it possible to go through the non-disturbance easement? Because that was never intended to have an access onto
That was
Palin
as
Road.
part of the rezoning. That was one of the conditions, that whatever disturbance we had here, we can add to extend that easement.
Tom, can you just clarify that for us? Is it a requirement that this entrance be allowed on Palin? I have a concern because we have 4 lanes of traffic. I know it's not shown on this map, but there's actually 4 lanes of traffic here.
It's not a mandatory requirement, but there's permission granted to allow access if required.
If required. Okay.
Actually, we have the traffic consultant, Rich Pearson from John Meyer, I'm sorry. He can speak to the traffic flow both into the site and the existing entrance and the proposed. So I'll have him come up and
Okay.
discuss that.
And I'm sorry if you said this already, but the building on the left would be 1 story on 52 and 2 in the back. On the
Correct.
right-hand side of the site, are those all both 1-story buildings, or is
Yes,
that also
they're
1 and 2
one-story.
story?
No, 1-story buildings.
1 story, okay.
Good evening. Richard Pearson, John Meyer Consulting. I am a professional engineer and a professional traffic operations engineer. I've been working on this site since 2001, and I was involved with the traffic studies we prepared for the original overall development, which was the residential lots, which were since subdivided. We did look at commercial at one point back 2001, 2002 at some point, and then ultimately when we went through the studies, it was that was something that evolved later on to where we are now. In 2006, the applicant contacted me and discussed advancing the project, and he wanted to work out the access to this commercial portion of the site with both the New York State Department of Transportation and Dutchess County DPW. As you're aware, Palin Road is a county road and Route 52 is a state road. At that time, our office prepared a traffic study based on 38,000 square feet of medical office for this site. As was noted in association with the previous application, the traffic volumes in the area were higher overall in 2006 compared to the volumes today. We looked originally at having a full movement access onto Route 52, and the access onto Palin Road was going to be limited to not have left turns out of the site onto Palin Road. The residential portion of the site, of the original site, was proposed to continue to come out onto Route 52. The residential portion was changed, I believe it was last year, in response to comments from the residents that are currently living along there, where they said that they were concerned in part from the cut-through traffic from high school and other traffic, and they wanted to have a cul-de-sac. So this portion of the site plan addresses the concerns that they previously expressed. When we met with DOT and the county back in 2006, the two agencies, it was a coordinated effort. I met with both agencies at the same time, and they worked out the access where they proposed to not have left turns onto Route 52. There is a left turn proposed, a left turn lane proposed along Route 52 eastbound. That movement is currently not permitted. It's no left turns from Route 52. But they did permit that with the proposed striping that we are showing. There's an existing striped median, a painted median, and there's sufficient area for that painted median to be converted to a eastbound left turn lane. The state and the county agreed that left turns would be prohibited from the site onto Route 52, but vehicles could make both right and left turns onto Palin Road, thereby having people who are destined east on 52 to come out and make a right turn onto Palin Road and then make a left turn. If you're going east on 52, you come make a right turn onto Palin and then a left turn onto 52. And if you're destined north on Palin Road, rather than coming out and being in this left turn lane, you would proceed directly onto Palin Road. At the time, the county was aware that Palin Road is widened in this area, but the travel speeds are generally lower because it's a minor approach to this intersection, and most vehicles are turning, and then the other vehicles going northbound on Palin Road are traveling at lower speeds because they just came off of a turn as compared to the majority of through vehicles along the Route 52 axis. So this was reviewed very carefully by both agencies, and we received conceptual approval letters from both agencies regarding the access in 2006. In 2009, we prepared a supplemental analysis which looked at the reduced development of 23,000 square feet, very similar to what we're proposing today. At that time, the access was associated, or the site was looking at a combination of medical office or professional office and retail and a bank. So at this time, retail is no longer proposed, and it's been replaced with all of the professional office or medical office as well as the bank.
Just to clarify, was retail permitted on this site?
In the B1A?
Yeah.
No.
So that's why it's no longer proposed, because it's not
Right.
permitted in this zone? Okay.
Correct. At the time, we didn't have the specific zone in place, and I think some of the restrictions and concerns with the town, we were trying to address those concerns.
So does it remain proposed as offices or specifically medical offices?
I think
I know
it's
there's a bank
professional
branch,
office,
but-
professional office, could be medical office.
Okay.
No specific tenant at this time.
But primarily, aside from the bank branch, all office space
Yes.
proposed? Okay.
So we have received the review letter from the town traffic consultant, and we will work with him on responding to his comments. He's looking for an updated traffic study, which we will provide, and we'll work with him on the details of that study. We will incorporate the redevelopment of the previous application and talk to him about other concerns he may have.
Was there an alternative that would have allowed the connection for the residential subdivision onto 52, that would have allowed that to continue, or does that have to be capped? I know you're saying the residents wanted that, but I'm asking if it had to be capped to be able to do this, or whether that was just an option.
No, when we met with the county and the state, the residential access was going to remain in effect. The county did have a comment as part of their conceptual approval to try to minimize the commercial traffic using the residential roadway. And essentially, this cul-de-sac alternative addresses the county's comments as well as the comments from the residents.
So rather than signs that say no through traffic or
Right.
something like that, you're electing to
Right, and we
put
were
the
originally
cul-de-sac in.
proposing, a year ago when we were before the town board, we were considering signs saying no through traffic, traffic calming measures, speed humps, that type of thing. But ultimately, the resolution was the cul-de-sac.
Okay. Does this site work if you don't have access to Palin Road? Is it possible to have full access on 52?
I wouldn't want to say it doesn't work. I believe that it works much better the way it's currently proposed, as approved by both of the governing agencies.
I mean, Palin Road is very congested in that area, and
Understood.
it's 4 lanes of traffic that are
Understood.
usually packed.
As part of our analysis, we will be doing current traffic counts. We will be doing, Synchro is the traffic software we use, which simulates the traffic volumes during both the peak AM and peak PM hour.
I should have said during peak hour, yeah.
Right, and I was out there for approximately half an hour today between 5:20 and 6 o'clock, primarily at this intersection, and then I also reviewed some of the other nearby intersection operations. What I did find is that the Palin Road traffic volumes never queued to the point of the proposed site driveway, and that when the traffic signal did turn green, all those vehicles were processed, and there was no residual queuing for any vehicles that were not processed. So there may be times when vehicles will have to wait for a gap in that queue during the peak times, but those delays would occur within the site and would not disrupt traffic on
So
Palin
when we
Road.
have traffic turning right onto Palin Road or left onto Palin Road from 52 and stopping to make the left-hand turn into this site, is there?
Actually, that's the one thing I forgot to mention.
Okay.
Left turns from Palin Road into the site are prohibited.
Prohibited, okay.
Yes, based on the review by the county. So that
Okay.
way.
Will there be curbing to prevent that, or what will?
Yeah, we'll design a channelization island and work with Brendan on the details of that. But that was something specific because it wasn't needed, because they could make the left turn from 52, and if they were coming from the east on 52,
Make
they
a
could
right.
just go straight through and, yeah, make a right in.
Okay.
I remember when we first looked at this subdivision, and we were very concerned that we had preserved that look of Palin, and that the non-disturbance agreement went a long way towards doing that. So I think that access onto Palin Road is a tough one for me personally, just knowing what the intent of the board was at the time the original subdivision was approved.
Understood. I think hopefully that the mitigation proposed by the applicant, the replacement of that area, would serve to mitigate that.
How much cut do you have to do there? Isn't it kind of high there? Isn't that a hill and rock?
No, the hill begins farther up in this area and beyond. It's relatively level in that area.
Can you just give me, and I'm sorry, I'm just not looking at it, how many feet is that from the intersection, that drive? Is it
Right
is it
now, I
100
believe
feet,
it's about-
150?
Right now, I believe it's about 225 feet, and there is an opportunity. I was discussing that with the applicant and his civil engineer regarding shifting this up slightly to try to maximize that distance between the two intersections.
Yeah, because I think you'll find in the mornings that sometimes you are queued past that.
Understood, and with the morning, there'll be very little traffic coming out of the site
Right.
because the bank wouldn't be open at that time, and the medical office or professional office would not have much activity. And we also looked previously, I guess 2 or 3 years ago, when we were before the planning board, there was a concern about the John Jay High School and the queuing for the left turn lane at the signal, which was partially discussed with the previous application. And their queuing peaks at 7:15 in the morning, which again, I don't think there'll be much activity from our site. At that time, there was a question of how long is the existing queuing from the high school coming back into this area. The left turn lane for the high school is, I don't have the exact number, but it's approximately 600 feet long. So it's a very long left turn lane. There is an opportunity, I believe, to expand that left turn lane for the high school further as part of the restriping for this application. The painted median is fairly extensive, and we'll work with Brendan on the needs for our eastbound left turn queuing, and any surplus area could be provided to increase the length of the westbound left turn lane for the high school.
There is a version of this that could just exclusively use Route 52.
I'm not saying that there is, and I wouldn't propose that. I think it's a better and safer access the way we're proposed at this point. The travel speeds being what they are, the vehicles coming down Palin Road, although Palin Road is posted at 45 miles per hour, vehicles coming to this intersection are not traveling at 45 miles at this point. Oftentimes, they'll be coming to a red light and they'll be stopping. If they're not, most of those vehicles are either making a right onto 52 or a left on 52. And if they're going straight across, they're not traveling at 45 miles an hour or above either. Vehicles coming north on Palin Road are coming off of a turn at that intersection. Go ahead.
Sorry, if it never queues up that far, what causes them to decrease their speed?
That they're making a turn. You don't turn at 45 or 50 miles an hour.
Yeah, but you're 225 feet back.
Right, but they're at the point of slowing down to come to the intersection. I don't approach intersections like this at 45 miles an hour, even 200 feet away. The actual stopping distance for a 30-mile-an-hour road is 200 feet, and that includes some reaction time. So basically, people have considered slowing down when they're up in this area.
Lori, just maybe a couple things that
Sure.
come to my mind. I know you indicated that it doesn't queue up, or your observation was that it doesn't queue past the driveway.
Well, I just qualified that to be this afternoon. I said
Right.
we'll do a detailed study of that in the morning. I understand that the morning volumes are heavier. It's essentially a reverse flow
Yeah, right.
on Palin Road, where the southbound traffic is much heavier than the northbound traffic in the morning, and it's a reverse of that in the afternoon.
I just want to highlight the point, though, of that in order to travel eastbound on 52, you have to take a right turn out of this site and then navigate across 2 lanes to be able to get into the left turn lane, to be able to make that left. And the queue doesn't necessarily have to back up to be past the driveway to make that movement hard or impossible. So that's, that's something that certainly if it could be moved away further back, that would help improve that situation. The other thing is if the current traffic can sort of demonstrate that, and again, it depends on the AM traffic too, but if it could demonstrate that the length of these turn lanes aren't required, there could potentially be some restriping of Palin Road, so we don't have the situation where we have to cross 3 lanes.
Yeah, that's a great idea. We could look at that as well.
I guess from my perspective, when I looked at the information, I was trying to understand the rationale that led to this access, because it looked like it was capacity driven.
Yeah, actually, it was not, and admittedly, we didn't provide you that background information, so when we respond to your comments, we will have that information.
It was more safety driven.
It was, yeah, it was safety, it was discussion with DOT and the county, and it was safety driven, yes.
As you go forward with this process, I'm just going to strongly encourage you to involve our town professionals if you're going to be meeting with the county or the state, because it really does help with the process if we understand the conversations that you're having with other agencies. We're the lead agency, so.
Understood. I work on the other side
Or we
of the
will,
fence.
I'm not sure we're the lead agency yet, but that's something that we would intend to solicit for.
Right. I understand. I work on the other side of the fence, per se, reviewing applications for planning board, and I feel the same way when I'm doing those projects.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll open up for public comment in just a moment. Oh, sure, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say too also that if you notice, anyone coming down Palin Road,
Just come on up to the mic so we can hear you.
anyone that owns one of these businesses, their employees, their clients, their patients, anybody coming down Palin Road doesn't have to go to the light and back up on the light, at the light, to make a right, to make another right into the site. They don't even have to, they're not 200 feet.
I understand
So they
that.
can just come in Palin Road and they can access both lots.
But you
from
also
inside.
understand Palin Road, we had a non-disturbance agreement there at the time this was originally approved for a reason. It wasn't.
Well, it was
'cause
two reasons. It was to preserve the look of Palin Road as
Right.
much as possible.
Right.
And to prevent clear cutting, which both things are being accomplished, because there's no clear cutting. And we're swapping out an area that could have been clear cut, which will no longer be clear cut. But the big benefit
Well,
is you don't
I
have to go.
I would disagree that the two areas are comparable, but I understand what you're saying.
Well, I think that's his thing. But one of the biggest things, again, if you're coming down Palin Road, you never have to hit the intersection. You don't have to go within 200 feet. And that's
No,
for both
I
sites, because
understand.
we'll go right across to the other site from
Okay.
within the site.
Okay, thank you.
And I think that's one of the things that I discussed in my comment letter. There's always, the concept of rights in and rights out on Palin, and then
Right.
a left turn on 52.
Which would be easier, I think, to manage if you don't change the lane configuration that's there, on Palin, I mean. Okay. Any other questions or comments from board members before we open for public comment?
I was just wondering, is the area where the stormwater ponds are going to be, that's fully wooded right now, isn't it?
No, it's not. Normally, after a rainstorm, it will
No,
fill
I
up.
mean, talk about, it's treed right now, whereas once you get constructing, it will be cleared.
This pond here, there's an existing pond that's going to be
Okay.
modified, that's here. Right now, there is trees here, correct?
Okay, thank you.
Just to touch back to the non-disturbance, we are proposing the least amount of disturbance as possible. We are going to hold it as tight as possible here, and we will be, we can definitely
work with the
But you're
landscaping
going to have to clear enough to get sight distance and things like that. I mean, you can't just have
correct,
a
along
12-foot
here.
cut.
Yes.
Okay.
It's going to be a big cut.
Okay.
And just as you mentioned before, we are still in the somewhat preliminary stages. Just to let the public know, we really just want to get in front of the board and also the public to have them involved from the start.
Okay. Michelle, I know we're not at that point yet, but hearing office space and medical office space, we're going to have to look at parking too. As little parking as we can, as little as we can get away with, but when I hear medical office space, I get a little bit concerned that we're going to have enough parking.
Right, I mean, at this point,
So-
it was basically assumed professional office with 4 suites.
There's no, right now, there's no proposed tenants.
Okay.
So medical would probably require a little bit more.
Right.
Than what's currently shown on the plan.
At times, what we've done is we've tried to land bank some parking, and then if it ends up being needed, we could install it after after
Oh,
your
that's something we
tenancies are
definitely-
determined or something like that, because we don't want to create seas of pavement if we don't have to. But if it's necessary, we'll have to account for it. Okay. All right, other questions or comments from board members? Okay, Joe or Michelle, anything else we should add before we open for public comment? Scott? Okay. Is there anyone here who'd like to speak for or against the Stone Ridge Commons site plan? We'd have you come on up, and if you could sign in on our clipboard, we'll pull you up in order.
Hi, my name is Barbara Stuck. I was here for the Lake City development, but I just have a couple of comments on here. I agree with some of your concerns. Again, I'm not a traffic person, but this intersection is a zoo now, and you're only adding to it. I also feel sad that the character of this corridor is changing. When we moved here 40 years ago, there were horses across the street, and now it's just more and more development. And I know that's progress, and I know it's allowed, and it's theoretically a good thing, but you're definitely changing the character of the town. And I think you have a responsibility to look at that. I appreciate that the developer listened to what the people who live in that development said last time, and you're trying to stop the traffic from going through there. The talk about the pond to collect the water, I don't have a water problem, but I know when that development was built, a lot of that water that was supposed to go into those collection ponds ended up in Lake City. And it took a long time to get the town to theoretically solve that problem. I don't think it's solved now. I'm not sure if this is going to impact that or not. It really has nothing to do with me. I just feel sad that all of this is going on, and that one little stretch of road between Palin Road and Rothel has an awful lot of traffic now, and this is only going to add to it. No matter what a traffic study says, a people study knows what it's like. And I think you're only, I just think you have a responsibility to think of the character of the town, and you're changing it. You're changing it drastically. That's up to you to decide if it's a good thing or not. I personally don't think it is.
Thank you. Kevin? Hi.
Hi, Kevin Miller, 68 Round Hill Road. I live in Stone Ridge, as well as I'm the builder of most of the homes there.
Okay.
So I own the vacant lots that are there that are adjacent to this property.
Okay.
I'm very much in favor of the cul-de-sac, which was granted during the zoning. It's going to enhance the community and make it much safer for all the kids, including mine, to walking up and down that street. You know, people who are coming in there, coming to visit, or they live there. Right now, there's a lot of cut-through traffic, so we're very happy, or I'm very happy that the zoning board granted that cul-de-sac. I'd like to see that go in as soon as possible. It's difficult to not have any decisions. This has been going on for many, many years. So it's almost impossible for me to, or for someone to want to buy a home that's adjacent to this because they don't know what's going on. I like the plan. I think the buildings will shield 52. I'm told there's extensive landscaping that will be put up between the residential and commercial areas, but I'd like to see a quick resolution. I know the drainage has been studied for at least 10 years, and I would love to see some resolution to this, but I know there's some other neighbors that I've spoken to, and everybody that most of the people I've spoken to are in favor of the cul-de-sac. That's really what we want to see happen there. As far as the traffic goes, I think the entrance on Palin is essential to keep people from backing up and going. You can't make a left turn out of onto 52 out of there, so I don't know how that will work without that. The corner across the street is completely devoid of trees on the
Do you
corner.
mean physically can't make the turn, or just that right
No,
now it's blocked?
Well, it's illegal, you know, and it
Right
should
now.
be to make a left turn coming out of there onto 52. You can't. It's
Right
just-
now?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's impossible. Of course, those are some of the reasons I'd like to see the water finally brought across the street. I know I'm going to go into all the problems that are there, but this board had us put in many hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of piping underneath that road, and since then we've dug 27 wells. So we are not able to utilize the dry water lines that we were made to put in by this board in 2006. So the faster that this gets done, I think the better off we all are. I know you guys, I don't know.
So you were the original developer. Do you recall the
I'm not the
non-disturbance?
original developer. The original developer is Route 52 Associates.
Okay.
These people sold me the residential portion of
Okay.
this job.
Okay.
I did not map it, but I was, of course, interested and involved. I don't know if the cul-de-sac can go in before the planning of the entire site is
That would
resolved.
not be typical. We don't usually allow development before we're at least,
Will the cul-de-sac change
Further along.
in dimension or
Will it
with a
change?
location? I don't think the cul-de-sac can change in dimension or location. I'm expecting that you would not want to permit the cul-de-sac to be installed before the site is approved. So I'm
Correct.
advocating for a quicker approval, since these people have been in front of this board with drainage, I know, for many, many years. And as far as I know, you know, that pond is completely dry all the time.
maybe they were in front of one of the other boards for a zoning change or something.
I'll let the engineers address that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Do we have anyone else on those? Anyone else who'd like to offer comment for the Stone Ridge application? Okay, if I could have the applicant come on back up. When did we submit the application for this?
When did we submit the application
Yeah,
for the site plan?
yeah.
I believe.
I'm concerned when I hear years, because this hasn't been in front of us for years.
No, this application in front of this board was submitted, I believe, the end of last year, and it was in front of
Okay.
the town board for many
Okay.
years getting a rezone.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because I didn't remember having this in front of us, so.
So it was not in front of the town board for many years. It went through very quick. The town board held its public hearings, went through. I think, you know, we got to be very careful about these perceived delays on the part of
Well,
boards.
that's why I wanted
It's
to
not-
clarify,
I agree with you,
because-
Jay. I certainly fully support you. This was filed, this application, within the last few months. And in fact, this board really went out of its way to schedule this public hearing, which, to allow the public input, because the applicant wanted it done. So I certainly think, you know, that,
Okay.
you know, it certainly wasn't before the town board for years.
Okay. Thank you. I know we haven't had a lot of public comment tonight, but I think that I'm not hearing a lot of resistance to what you're proposing. So as far as your next steps, I think there's a few things that have been mentioned that we need to cover. I certainly think appropriate landscaping between commercial and residential. So we want to see, I'm sorry.
I just think we are all going to have to see how the applicant proposes to abandon that proposed right-of-way that's on the file map, because this is only a site plan application, and I don't know whether it would have to be adjusted to also include an amendment to the subdivision, because that road coming out is shown on a file map, so I think they have to
Okay.
address that.
Okay. Is that, Joe, is that in your comments, or is that?
Yeah, we had a comment about that,
Okay.
Michelle,
Just so
also.
that when things that we're delaying anything, I just want to make sure that's clear.
That's fine.
That's an issue, that's all.
That's fine.
Point taken.
I'm seeing, we're talking about there's a lot of trees there where the new pond is going, so making sure that there's appropriate landscaping left or possibly replantings there. Or some sort of fencing or something that's going to look nice for residential area to be looking at.
Okay, yeah, the whole point of tonight was just to come down and get a basic concept approved, so now we can go ahead and refine that, things
Okay.
such as landscaping, lighting, storm water.
Okay. And I really think we need to see more about the traffic to understand whether or not the Palin access is needed, why it's needed, and just how you might propose to mitigate the current traffic layout at Palin Road and the way this would interact with that. So,
And I would also just make the comment that we need to have some more traffic information to understand that the site can accommodate the level of traffic that may be generated by the site.
Okay.
And the other comment I just have as from a planning perspective is it possible to keep the disturbance on one portion of the site so that there's maybe the other portion of the site can remain undisturbed and provide more of a stormwater function, or if there's any sort of creative solutions we can come around with
Right.
perhaps putting the disturbance in one area so we
So-
can leave some of it undisturbed.
If possible, and actually maybe you mean instead of having to have the two ponds, maybe being able to enlarge the one pond if we pull the buildings a little bit closer to each other or something like that?
Or keep the
Get them all
development
on
onto
one side.
one side of the.
I don't know if that's possible, but if that's just something you can look at to see if there's a site layout that preserves more of the green space or gives you a better ability to mitigate the drainage without the trees, losing the trees.
I mean, we can look into it, but both these ponds were sized to handle the required stormwater. This one handles the runoff that's coming down basically from the existing site over here.
Does that exist right now? I thought that was a new pond. I'm sorry, maybe I misunderstood.
There's an existing swale here, but this is to mitigate the impervious that's going to be coming from our site, and it also handles
Okay.
a portion of the site that's existing now.
Cool.
And this one is to handle both the proposed and the existing. And right now, this one is to solve some of the drainage problems on neighboring properties. This is actually going to be increased quite a bit.
Okay. Well, I think,
So, I
Michelle,
mean,
those
we can-
comments are in your letter as well? Okay. So if there's a way, take a look at the comments, and if there's something you can do to help mitigate the amount of pavement and things like that. Again, possibly looking at maybe land banking some of that, again, not knowing what your final uses will be as far as the difference between office and medical office, but maybe,
And actually, the comment is that maybe consider some alternative layouts for the site.
yeah. Yeah.
Did I get you right, or did I misunderstand? You're saying you have to build that pond on the right-hand side to mitigate stormwater coming off the residential development?
No, right now, this pond
Oh, the
discharge.
other one. No, the other
Oh,
one.
this
The other
one?
one. The right-hand Yeah, the one on the right-hand side.
Basically, this is there is some drainage that's coming in here. There's a small retention pond that's there. But the increase to this is basically for the impervious for the site. But the drainage area does come down from this existing site there.
Okay, so you're saying there's a small little pond now that takes
It's
care of the
more- it's like
existing
there's
drainage?
a
This
swale
would all
that
be
goes
due to
in
your
there.
impervious then? Do
Excuse
you
me?
have to increase the size of that much?
Right now, it's basically a swale. I mean, that's,
Okay.
and this, I mean, it's not that.
Well, in part, if I can't, we required as part of the rezone that they had zero discharge from the site.
Okay.
So that's why they had to increase the size of the pond. We required zero discharge,
But
not
is
just,
there's a discharge now from the site?
well, they had it just regulate the peak rate of flow. But we wanted zero flow.
Okay.
DEC says you can't increase the peak rate, but we said we want zero flow, and that's why they increased the size of the pond.
Okay, so you want zero flow regardless of the storm size?
Right.
Okay, now I understand.
And that's
Thank you.
why the two ponds had increased the size that they did. It's not just to mitigate the impervious, it's the whole, we're actually retaining the entire 100-year storm where existing conditions were
I thought it was
were
kind of
discharging.
large to just,
They're big ponds.
I understand now, thank you. You don't have to say anymore. I just didn't understand.
But if there's a way to reconfigure it and just enlarge the pond that's already there and kind of preserve some of those trees, if there's a way you can do it, see if there's, like Michelle said, maybe a different layout or something. The other thing I would offer is I realize this has been rezoned business, so, you know, these will be office space, but if you can, when you do the actual buildings, the more we can have them have, you know, kind of the feel of that neighborhood behind you and the residential characteristics on the building design, as much as you can do that, I think that might also go a little way to mitigating the visual impact of having this here. I think really the big thing for me is just that Palin Road. I know that we had wanted to really preserve that, so if we can just understand why it's needed or if there's alternatives. I have a real concern both about the traffic itself coming in and out of Palin at that point, having driven by there every morning for 15 years. I've seen cars do more than 45 miles an hour running through that intersection, so, from Palin, possibly not making a turn or not making the turn as quickly as they wanted, but I just think cars aren't going as slowly as we may think they are right at that point on Palin Road, as cars may be coming in and out.
I agree.
Yeah, I know. Okay. Michelle, I know we held this hearing a little bit early because we knew the applicant was requesting public comment. Should we circulate for lead agency? Do we adjourn to a date uncertain and circulate when we have a more complete version of the plan?
Yeah, I
What's
think
the
it's
correct
premature
step?
to circulate because I don't know how the agencies can give us any feedback if the plan's going to change significantly.
Okay.
This plan.
Okay. So, did you want to adjourn to another date for additional public comment? Are you comfortable with the public comment tonight? We'll adjourn to a date uncertain until we get you to the point where it's ready to come back and we've circulated for lead agency. Do you have a preference?
No, it's up to them. I mean, if you want to wait
Okay.
to a date uncertain.
Okay. So, knowing that the applicant will have, and I know there's some folks here to hear about this, the applicant will have to revise the plan, make some changes, update the traffic information, and they would re-notice you if we adjourn to a date uncertain, so you would receive a letter in the mail again at the point where we did schedule this back on for public hearing. In the meantime, you may see it on our agendas. If they come back in, they may have some additional discussions with the board as they go through the iterations and refine their plan a little bit more. You're always welcome to come to those, but just understand that if it's on our agenda as a discussion item, we would not open for public comment until you receive the notice and see it back on as a public hearing. So, do I have a motion to adjourn this?
What's the second meeting in June?
The second meeting in June is the 18th.
Is that 18th?
I don't think you'll be ready at that point.
You gotta give 30 days notice.
Right, we can't do that because we haven't circulated for the agency because you don't have a plan we can circulate yet.
Can we do it to the first meeting and?
We need to adjourn to a date uncertain.
Okay.
Because I don't know when you'll have a plan that's ready to be circulated, and then it's 30 days from that date. We can't know when that will be yet.
Okay.
Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn this public hearing to a date uncertain?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye. And then, it's not that we'll delay you in rescheduling,
No,
it's just that we
that's
have to know when you get to the point that we can circulate for lead
That's
agency, and then
understandable.
it'll be about 30 days after that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I know it's not on our agenda. Michelle, did you have something you wanted to cover with the board quickly?
Yeah, just real quickly, I just wanted to mention that the town is in the process of drafting the hazard mitigation plan, and it's at a point where they're going to be posting it shortly on the town website. And I would just ask if the planning board had a chance to take a look at it. There's some mitigative strategies that have to do with the zoning and other interesting.
Folks, I'm sorry, we're still in a meeting here, so if you can just, you're welcome to discuss, but in the lobby if you don't mind. Our mics pick up the rumble of the noise. It makes it hard for us to hear.
And there's other stuff that might be interesting for the planning board to see.
Hazard mitigation plan,
The
and it's
hazard
on the
mitigation
website?
plan is on the
town's
or
website?
will be shortly if it is. I think it's up there now. But, and it's a draft, and they're looking for comments, so.
Okay.
If you have any comments. And I can, at a later date, I can discuss some of what's in the plan if you desire to hear that.
Okay.
Well, no, but it is on the website.
I thought Rick said it was on the website today, right? Yeah. I think it's on the website now.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Thanks, guys.